Okay. Right then. Agenda item 1, announcements by the Mayor and the Chief Executive. So I just have one really nice thing to do before we start the meeting. Councillor Dadd, I wonder if you could come forward, please. Present Councillor Dadd with her mayoral book. Okay, all right. And I understand also we have a slight technical issue with timing your 5 minutes. However, we'll still be timing your 5 minutes when you're speaking. Okay, so even if it's not up on the screen, we will still be timing it. Right then, Chief Executive, you got any announcements?
No, madam.
So item 2 then, apologies for absence. Are there any apologies for absence? Councillor Sokol. Are you pressing the buttons?
L. Simpson and Councillor Sheikh-Ullah.
Good afternoon, Madam Mayor. We have apologies from Councillor Kath Pinnock. Thank you. Apologies from Councillor Andrew Cooper.
Thank you. Sorry, Councillor Hall.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Apologies from Councillors Brooke, Lees Hamilton, Holmes and Bolt.
Thank you. Councillor Ahmed.
Apologies from Councillor Anwar and Councillor Hussain will be coming late.
Okay, thank you. And Councillor Darwin, did you? Sorry.
Councillor Cahoot will be coming late.
Thanks. Thank you.
Welcome.
Are there any other apologies that we've not noted? Yes, Councillor Sokol. Just hang on a minute while we switch your microphone on. That's it.
Yeah, thank you. Councillor Afaq, but coming a bit late. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. And Councillor Ahmed, was that another apology?
Coming late from a funeral. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Right then, item 3, minutes of previous meeting. I move that the minutes of the meeting of the annual council held on 21st of May 2025 be approved as a correct record. Is that seconded?
Yes, it is seconded.
That's seconded. Can we vote by a show of hands, please? All those in favour, yeah? Any against? Any abstentions? Thank you, those are carried. Thank you. Item 4, are there any declarations of interest that members need to make at this time? No? If you have any during the meeting, please complete the form in the usual manner and notify yourselves. Thank you. Right, petitions from members of the council. Do we have any petitions from members of the council? Councillor, can you press your button, please? Councillor Bamford.
Yes, I've got a petition here from residents of Denbydale calling for a pedestrian crossing in the centre of Denbydale to make the area safer.
Thank you. Okay, any others? In accordance with Council Procedure Rule 9(3), I direct that the subject matter of the petition be referred to the appropriate Executive Director for investigation. Okay. Item 6 then, deputations and petitions from members of the public. There are 2 deputations this evening. So the first deputation, can I please invite Dr. Dylan Murphy? Dr. Murphy, if you could introduce yourself, and you have 5 minutes to present your deputation.
Okay, thank you. My name is Dr. Dylan Murphy. I'm a member of Disabled People Against Cuts, and we've been campaigning against austerity measures against disabled people since 2010. Now, in the spring of this year, the Chancellor Rachel Reeves announced that the government will be making cuts of at least £5 billion from disability benefits. The Labour government claims that its actions are guided by the desire to improve the life of disabled people. Yet, unfortunately, we've got a Labour government, yes, a Labour government that's engaged in conscious hate speech against disabled people. We've got Keir Starmer in the Sun newspaper claiming that people on disability benefits, it's a lifestyle choice to live on disability benefits. We've got Liz Kendall, the head of the DWP, saying that people on disability benefits are taking the mickey. It's Liz Kendall in her £4 million mansion who's taking the mickey, wasting £500,000 of taxpayers' money trying to defend the Tory work capability assessment reforms, and the courts deemed those reforms illegal. Now, it's quite clear that this Labour government sees us disabled people as a burden in our society. Just because we're not paying income tax, we're regarded as a burden. The Chancellor's made that clear on many occasions. Now, this reactionary government wanted to make savage cuts to personal independence payment, which over 3 million people claim in this country, a benefit that helps many disabled workers actually stay in a job itself. And obviously, it's just made major cuts to the health element of universal credit. New universal credit health element claimants from April 2026 are going to have their universal credit health element halved and frozen, driving up to 750,000 disabled people into poverty by 2030. New claimants who meet the severe conditions criteria and who are terminally ill will be protected from the cuts and the freeze. Yet, it's for people who've got fluctuating diseases, it's going to be extremely difficult to meet the severe conditions criteria. Now, just 2 weeks ago, the Labour government suffered a humiliating defeat over its proposals to make savage cuts to personal independence payment, and that was a victory for all disabled people in this country. Yet we should be clear that these savage cuts to personal independence payment have only been postponed for a year, they haven't been stopped completely. Now, disabled people and their organisations, we've got a major fight in our hands to make sure that the TIMS review of personal independence payment engages in genuine co-production, which has been completely absent over the last year. Considering the government's abject failure to consult with disabled people and their organisations, then we have little trust that this government is going to engage in a genuine co-production and genuine consultation over the course of the next year. And most disabled people's organisations, and there's not one in this country that supports these cuts, believes that we can trust this government to actually not try and come back again next year and make cuts to PIP via other means. And we should bear in mind that the so-called Labour government has further cuts to disability benefits in the pipeline. There's a proposal to merge contribution-based DSA, which I'm on, with JSA and turn it into a single time limit of contributed benefit, and also not paying young disabled people 18 to 21 the health element of universal credit, as if young disabled people have got less needs than people who were over the age of 22. It's quite shocking. Now, in 2024, in April, the United Nations Disability Committee issued a damning report into the United Kingdom. It stated that disabled people in this country face systematic violations of their human rights. And the UN Disability Committee further added that in the United Kingdom, disabled people do not have an adequate standard of living, which is a legal obligation under the UN Covenants on Social and Economic Rights. And then in February this year, the UN Committee on Economic Rights issued another damning report which criticised the Labour government for its failure to address poverty and social and economic inequality in this country. In May, Amnesty International issued a 150-page report stating that Labour's cuts to disability benefits were an infringement of international human rights law. And then just last week, the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights has written to the government calling upon it to withdraw its bill to make cuts to universal credit. And in the words of the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights, he said, "This will deepen the regression in disabled people's human rights if it becomes law." Now, this government has made the disingenuous claim that the cuts to the health element of universal credit are essential to get disabled people into work. Yet the Citizens Advice Bureau, that's funded by the government and helps hundreds of thousands of people in this country with benefit claims, has issued a damning report, and it's called Pathways to Poverty. And in this report, the CAB states, "For those who are pushed into poverty as a result of these reforms, this will only make it harder to work. When someone struggles to pay for basics like food, clothes and transport, it becomes tougher to find and keep a job. The link between poverty and ill health is well established."
Just got a few more seconds.
Okay. It says, if you can't afford food, heating and health costs, your health is likely to worsen. Now, obviously, over the next period, disabled people are going to need as many allies and as much help as we can when the TIMS review begins its work in the autumn of this year. But obviously we've got the cuts that have already taken place or are taking place because the House of Lords are only going to rubber stamp the bill because it's a finance bill. And my question to the councillors is, considering the cuts to universal credit, which are going to affect up to 750,000 people by 2030, what, if anything, can Kirklees Council do to support these very vulnerable, some of the most poorest people in this country, and hundreds, if not thousands of those people will live in Kirklees Council's borders? And the other thing I'd like the council to consider is, what else can the council do to actually help people with benefits advice? I'm a member of the Benefits and Work campaign group.
Yeah. Thank you.
And obviously there's a desperate need from disabled people for more help, more advice with benefits issues, such as the deluge of things that are happening to disability benefits. So that's something else I'd like the council to consider.
So that is time now. Thank you very much. Thank you. Can I invite Councillor Dadd to respond, please?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Dr. Murphy, for your presentation. Can you hear me? Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Murphy, for your deputation. So, in terms of the questions that you've asked around what the council is doing to ensure that we are supporting, people, residents in Kirklees that are hit badly by the cost of living crisis and cuts to welfare benefits, we have a very hard-working and dedicated welfare and exchequer team who are responsible for crisis support via our local welfare provision, and they also administrate the household support scheme. We also undertake the Blue Badge administration for Kirklees areas and have an advice team whilst also providing funding to external advice partners. So the local welfare provision team helps support people in financial crisis, and in the year 24-25 took over 22,000 calls, which resulted in over 6,000 referrals to food banks and issuing £189,000 worth of vouchers across 5,500 people in need. Since October 21, the Department for Work and Pensions have provided continuous rounds of the Household Support Fund, equalling £7.4 million per year, with the current seventh round being for £6.5 million. And this has been utilised again via targeted support to identify cohorts and supporting them via vouchers for children in receipt of means-tested free school meals, funding the VCSE sector to offer cost of living support, and online applications awarding cash payments to residents via the Household Support Fund. Residents can also apply for discretionary housing payments, and that can be found on our website, to help with any rent payments and support with council tax bills. And we awarded more than £450,000 worth in the year 24-25. We have a fantastic advice provision, which is the advice contract with VCSE partners, including Kirklees Citizens Advice and the Law Centre, Fusion and Huddersfield Mission, offering advice and guidance for a range of issues, including welfare benefits, debt advice, housing, consumer, etc. Advice Kirklees Benefits team also helps support residents maximise their welfare benefit entitlement and provides an advocacy service to challenge unfavourable benefit decisions to help increase household income. And in the year 24-25, the financial gains for residents via that support mechanism was around £10 million. So cross-sector partnership, again, we work with them in tackling poverty partnership board, which meets every 2 to 3 months to share information and update and share best practice, closer working to encourage ideas to reduce poverty across our region. And the Blue Badge team currently have 20,000 active Blue Badge holders. The government has also announced that a 3-year crisis and resilience fund from April 26 will replace the household support fund and discretionary housing payments, and we are waiting for further guidance and will implement support accordingly. I just want to reiterate that we do have a very dedicated in-house team, and we always do what we can with the finances available to us in making sure that funding is given to external partners as well, so they can support residents across Kirklees. It's something we are dedicated to do, we have been doing for many years, and will continue to do going further. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Dadd. Okay. We have a second deputation, which is from Dr. Mitchell. Okay, Dr. Mitchell, you have 5 minutes. If you can introduce yourselves, and you've got 5 minutes for your deputation. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Mayor. My name is Mike Mitchell. I'm a resident of Almondbury, and I'm accompanied by Nicholas Palfreyman, who is also a resident of Almondbury. We're a delegation seeking to protect the green belt between Fenny Lane and Dark Lane, Almondbury. First of all, we'd like to thank the Council for agreeing to receive this delegation. We represent a large number of residents in Almondbury who oppose any change to the designation of the area between Fenny Lane and Dark Lane from Greenbelt to any other status. A petition supporting the status quo has been signed by 787 persons, of whom over half are residents of Almondbury and the surrounding area, and a copy of that petition has been passed to the clerk. Some weeks ago, a developer who owns 43 Fenny Lane, as well as the land behind numbers 41, 39A and 39, bordered by Dark Lane and St Helens Gate, approached some of his neighbours regarding housing development which he is seeking to promote on this site. He said his initial intention was to have the land reclassified from Greenbelt to unallocated, pending an application by him to build around 10 to 12 large new houses with access through 43 Fenny Lane and involving the demolition of the existing house there. We ask that the Council refuse the proposed removal of Greenbelt status for the following reasons. 1. The area is a sanctuary for owls, bats, badgers, foxes and other wild animals, and is high-quality greenbelt countryside which has never been developed previously. 2. Changes to the greenbelt and development in this area would irrevocably alter the character of Almondbury Village to a more urban environment. 3. This is an area much frequented by walkers, and in addition, large numbers of pupils at King James School use Dark Lane to walk to and from school. Increasing traffic in this area would we think be a safety risk. 4. We're aware of 2 previous applications to develop part of this land. One, relating to 43 only, was many years ago, and one in 2016 to have the whole area bounded by Fenny Lane, Burks Lane, Dark Lane and St Helens Gate designated as development land. Both these applications were rejected by the council. 5. Fenny Lane is currently heavily used as a rat run to avoid the Waterloo area traffic lights. There have been several serious road accidents at the foot of Fenny Lane, and lengthy queues there are commonplace at peak periods. Also at peak periods, there are long queues at the junction of Fenny Lane, Northgate and Westgate in Almondbury, often extending for 200 to 300 yards from the junction. This development proposal would increase the volume of traffic on Fenny Lane and through the village of Almondbury, a serious safety and pollution risk. 6. The removal of greenbelt status would create uncertainty as to the type of development of the land and would, in our opinion, place a blight on the adjoining properties. This could seriously affect their value and ability to be resold. Our properties would also be overlooked when they are not overlooked at present. And 7. Any development would inevitably be disruptive over the constructive period. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you. Can I invite Councillor Turner to respond, please?
Madam Mayor, thank you, Mr. Litchfield, for your deputation. Excuse me. In short, we must wait for the local plan. That is the only opportunity to change land designations in planning terms. People can suggest land be classified for a range of uses, from housing, employment or open spaces, or even return to the green belt if it's not already green belt. The Council is currently preparing a new local plan to manage land use. It is a legal requirement to produce a local plan. As part of the process of deciding the next local plan, there are several rounds of public consultation which the comments from the group should be directed towards. The Cabinet has recently adopted an up-to-date local development scheme, or LDS, which can be viewed on the Council's website, given the timelines for the plan making progress to help the public participate. The engagement of the public is central and a vital part of the planning system and key to making a good local plans to achieve high-quality, sustainable developments. The Council welcomes views from our residents, businesses and communities to help shape the future of the district and manage the growth of housing, which is a key objective of the planning system. The local plan process, by its very nature, is a lengthy and time-consuming process, so we are several years away from being able to adopt a local plan. The issues which are raised in this deputation are best addressed to our planning service to feed into the consideration of sites and emerging policies which will make up the new local plan. As part of the plan-making process, at some point in the future, no one quite knows when, an independent government-appointed planning inspector will consider the publication of draft local plan at a hearing held in public and will also consider comments and representation made before deciding whether to recommend a new local plan can be adopted. The local plan process provides lots of opportunities for the public to air their views. If someone was to put a planning application in now, as it's a green belt, they would have to demonstrate what we call special circumstances. And as there's no application at the moment, well, obviously we can't comment any further at this moment in time on that possibility. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your deputation. Thank you. Thank you. I don't believe we've got any public petitions. No? No. Okay. So we move to item 7, public question time. I believe we have 2 public questions that have been received and the responses have been published. Is the person who has put in the... Oh, hello. So you can have a supplementary question to question 1 and a supplementary question to question 2. So we'll go with question 1 first. Yep. Okay, thank you.
Great, thank you, and hello everyone. I'm very glad, Councillor Pinnock, where are you? There you are. I'm very glad to hear that you've recognised the value of social enterprise. I think you're absolutely right to point that out. I do feel that it's a little passive in terms of recognising the value that these organisations bring. And I also think that some of the basic foundations of any organisation, such as safeguarding, DBS checks, insurance, etc., are common building blocks of any new startup. Where we are going to assess new startups on a case-by-case basis, I think that can often lead to missed opportunities, and it puts barriers in the way of startups as well. What I'd like is all of the councillors to recognise the value in your communities of people who can and want to solve the problems that we all face. And we want to support the council in getting through some of these challenges, such as the financial challenges that we face into. But we need you to help us open that door. I'd like, this may be appropriate for you, Councillor Pinnock, or it might be more appropriate for Councillor Turner. I'll let you decide. I'd like you to commit to publishing an accessible and transparent set of baseline criteria for voluntary community and social enterprise organisations, such as those that the Crown Commercial Services publishes on their website. Are you willing to commit to that, please?
Councillor Pinnock.
For the original question, which I thought was an important one, and also for the council to demonstrate how important community organisations are in terms of their commitment, their dedication and motivation, and that the council recognise that these organisations, irrespective of the shape, large or small, that they deliver positive outcomes for residents and local communities, which is really important. And that these organisations, often because they're flexible and they can, you know, do the work at pace, that it's very, very beneficial to not just the local authority, but partners as well. In terms of your original question, sorry, your supplementary question, it's difficult, and I'm not in a position to agree or disagree with what you've got to say. And I think in the body of the original question, where we've responded to it, I think what we've tried to demonstrate is it's not one size that fits all. It's not as simple as to say this is the particular criteria, because of the different types of you know, what's on offer. So it could be that an organisation applies in terms of procurement, it could be a grant, it could be something else, but each grant, each procurement has its own eligibility criteria. So it's very difficult to produce something that's going to be generic across the board. It is something I'll discuss with my colleagues and I'll discuss with officers as to whether it is doable, but it's difficult really to confirm at this stage that yes, definitely we can do that, because it's not clear for me at this stage whether it's something that we can commit to. And what I don't want to do is say yes and we put something out there and it's not suitable for different community organisations, because as you know, each community organisation has its different governance structure and so on. So it's not a simple yes, but it is something we can get back to you on.
Thank you. Can you now, do you have a supplementary question to the answer to question 2? We'll move on there. Thank you.
They are, those organisations have already battled through to get their way into the council. And the inclusive economy strategy talks about social value and inclusive outcomes, but the VCSE sector is still very passive. We support those who show up, but we don't recognise the power that the council has to deliberately create the conditions for this sector to grow. I've spoken today and on previous days with people from Social Enterprise UK, Local Services to You, and lots of other national and local organisations that really want to help Kirklees step up. But they need more than just kind words in a strategy document. We need to use the council's processes, procurement, commissioning and asset transfer powers to actively seed new groups and prioritise community-led models. Can you please commit to the following 2 actions? Updating our processes so that the growing the VCSE sector becomes a deliberate outcome of the strategy, i.e. putting VCSE procurement ahead of profit-led procurement. And secondly, to build clear and measurable time-bound targets into the strategy to increase VCSE involvement, increase social enterprise startups and increase to conduct procurement reform, so that this strategy can guide action and not just gather dust.
Okay. Councillor Turner to respond, please.
Thank you very much for your supplementary question. I'd just like to start off by saying we absolutely recognise the voluntary sector in all its guises. There's lots and lots of organisations out there, some small, some large, working across the council in all sorts of areas, and that role is vitally important, and we recognise that how important those people are, whether it be a small organisation or the large ones. And volunteering is something that I'm rightly proud of being here in Kirklees, that we're very good at. We have a fantastic group of people out there, as I say, volunteering. Increasing social enterprise. It would be great to increase social enterprise. Part of the problem is, of course, we can't say to someone, we're going to do this. They need to come to us. If somebody comes to us with a suggestion, it's doing with, not to. They need to come to us and tell us what they want to do, and we'll see what we can do with it to help them. Because obviously social enterprises, cooperatives are all part of the local economy, all part of the growth agenda. So if people want to do that, come and talk to us, absolutely. But I don't know what's out there and what they want to do. They have to come to me, and then I'll see what help we can get for them. But as I say, they need to come to me first, because I don't know what they all want. Because, as I said, the voluntary sector is so big in Kirklees, and we should be absolutely rightly proud of that. But if they come and talk to me, I'll see what we can do.
Okay, thank you for your questions. Thank you. We shall now move to item 8, the West Yorkshire Combined Authority minutes. Councillor Lawson. Point, Councillor Lawson, on this item.
Okay. I wish to suspend standing orders so we can bring forward item 21, the motion on committee systems, to this point.
You seconded, Councillor Marchington seconding. Okay, all right. So we need to go to the vote on that, and we'll do that on the consoles, please. So the motion that's been put is to suspend, to move to item 21 on the agenda.
Thank you, Matt.
To move to item 21 before we get to item 8. Okay. So can you all vote now, please? Has everybody voted? Who wishes to vote? Yes? That request has fallen. We will now move to item 8. To receive the information, the minutes of West Yorkshire Combined Authority. The minutes are here for noting. Are there any comments or questions regarding the minutes? Councillor Hall.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I've just got a few, well, really couple of comments to make on the set of minutes that we have in front of us. When you read these minutes through, they're full of awful long words and acronyms, which, if you haven't read the papers, mean absolutely nothing. And I was wondering, just for some instances that are mentioned in these papers, and when I read these out, just think to yourself, do I know anything about that? Yeah? So we've got new business support infrastructure, investment zones, West Yorkshire Fair Work Charter, Home Energy West Yorkshire, Climate and Environment Plan, UTMC, mobility credits. Does anybody knows anything about, well, yeah, there will be people that know something about some of these, but I think the point I'm trying to make rather clumsily, Madam Mayor, is that we know very little about what's going on the Combined Authority. And unless you're like me and you've got a conduit into somebody that actually sits on the board who can explain it to me, I'm pretty sure that most of us are bamboozled by most of the things on here. Now, my colleague, Councillor Taylor, has said before on a few occasions, and I entirely agree with him, that when we send our officers and our councillors into bat for Kirklees, we need a common kind of ask We need a common purpose that's going to put Kirklees first, so we can fight against what often becomes a Bradford-Leeds axis, and get, you know, our fair share of what's going in. And I think the other side of that, to add to that, is the fact that we also need, out of the combined authority, some kind of resume as to exactly what's going on that we can all digest as 69 councillors. Because I'm pretty sure at the moment that most of us do not know what's going on in the combined authority. You will know, of course, that the government is bringing forward a bill at the moment to reorganise local government in much of the country. This is to replace what is now the two-tier system of counties and districts. And I'm sympathetic to that. You know, personally, I would think unitary authorities are much better in terms of being transparent in decision-making and also being more representative of the people. But part of that is that when they've done that, they're going to impose more mayors on top of it. And my fear is that these mayoral authorities, like the one we've got, are rapidly becoming very burgeoning bureaucracies who kind of are a conduit for government money which comes down, and then they disperse it as they see fit, instead of it actually coming down to the coalface, which is us. So I wonder whether that's something that the leader could take back to the authority, that if we go on as we are, we're going to be very disgruntled that all these decisions are being made about which we know absolutely nothing. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Hall. Councillor Pattison, do you wish to respond to that, please?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And yes, I really welcome the opportunity to respond to that. And I have to say, I'm sorry, really, but I can't disagree with a word that David says. I do recognise some of those things that you've talked about. Business support, I mean, actually, that's just their administrative support. I mean, I won't go through all the things that you've just listed, but I should know a bit more than anybody else because I'm actually on the board representing Kirklees. But it is becoming more and more difficult for ourselves as a cabinet, or even wider than the cabinet, because the opposition members plus the rest of my group are also involved in. Almost every one of us has got some input or connection with West Yorkshire Combined Authority now, and it's really difficult to actually knit that all together so that we really do understand what's going on. I think the same goes for the officers, and that's that's not to be detrimental to our officers. But it is becoming more and more difficult. The more powers that they take on, and yes, there'll be more powers from the devolution bill, good ones, hopefully, for us, but it does need that coordinated approach, not just so that we get our fair share, but we actually want to see West Yorkshire as a whole, as a district, well, as a region, work well, for the benefit of Kirklees, obviously, but it's not necessarily about us getting our fair share. I mean, just for instance, the work that's going on in the tram, we're very keen to make sure that our voice is heard there, not because we're getting our fair share at the moment in terms of any monetary value from, though we are getting some, from the West Yorkshire Combined Authority, but because we want to be there to have a stake in the ground for future. So it's really, really important that we do totally understand. And I mean, I don't know if you'll believe me or not, and perhaps Moses, because he's sitting beside me, I've actually just written down here before you stood up, we're going to have to find a better way of reporting back to council, to the full council, to all members, to make sure all members are involved and understand the enormity, really, the importance that there is of West Yorkshire.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Cathy Scott.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. My question was actually to the leader, and I actually do think you've answered some of it, but what I will do is read it out to you. Why is Kirklees consistently under-prioritised with funding allocations and transport infrastructure compared to Leeds and Bradford, which Councillor Hall rightly mentioned? But I do think there's that disconnect. Whilst we're rushing to read these minutes on what's happening, not every group is represented on the combined authority, and I also think it's an opportunity for the leader to do a presentation in this chamber to all 69 councillors or 68 if you don't want to count yourself, as a presentation, and do the presentation and actually explain things, because you will be sat at the table knowing about everything because you have oversight.
Thank you. Councillor Pattison.
Yes, thank you, Councillor Scott. I mean, that's exactly the issue, and I would actually take issue. We're not under-prioritised in terms of the funding we're getting. Sometimes we do actually benefit more, partly because of historic reasons, or partly because our needs are greater. But we're not, certainly the work that we're putting in, both as members and officers, is to ensure that we don't, none of our projects are under-prioritised. Sometimes, yes, they are at the end of the line of a batch of projects. I mean, I'm thinking of the A629 and Cooper Bridge, but we're not underrepresented there. But yes, I do agree. We need apps. I'm not quite sure if it's me standing up and giving a presentation or what, but I think we really need to think about how all members can be better informed about what is actually going on in West Yorkshire and how it impacts on them. I'm certainly making sure that my group is aware of the impact, certainly of the existing work and the devolution bill, how that's going to impact on Kirklees. But yes, all members need to know that.
Thank you. Councillor Andrew Pinnock.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to raise an issue which came up as part of a consideration at a recent Cabinet Committee local issues meeting. And this concerns a bus lane and some cycle lanes on the A638 and...
Councillor Pinnock, can I just double check with you that this is on the minutes of the
it's on... In as much as it's as much on the minutes as the other two questions have been. Okay. I'm coming to the point.
Thank you.
It's about bus lanes and cycle lanes on the A638 and the extension of the A638 Bradford Road, Oakenshaw, which is not a classified, well, it's a C road actually, but this is money from the West Yorkshire Combined Authority. And one of the issues that came up as part of that is that at the end of this bus lane in Oakenshaw is a roundabout. And the roundabout gives access to the M62. Now, everybody here will know that Kirklees Highways has absolutely nothing to do with that roundabout. It's Highways England or whatever it's now called. It's changed its name several times, but I am very concerned that we are doing things, bus lanes, cycle lanes, for certain lengths of road, and then they stop, because in some cases they can't go any further. There's an obstruction, and in this case the obstruction is the chain bar roundabout. When in practically every other country in Europe, if you wanted a cycle lane, for instance, to go across that roundabout, and very few self-respecting cyclists would dare cycle round that roundabout, or if you're in a bus and want to easily get across that roundabout, at the moment it's difficult because there are no traffic lights on Bradford Road, Oakenshaw. So no comprehensive planning has gone into this to try and extend what was proposed for Bradford Road, Oakenshaw, or indeed the other parts of Bradford Road further south, across that roundabout. And I do think that we are in danger of doing something in our own bit because we've got the money for it, even if it doesn't amount to anything that it should have amounted to, if you see what I mean. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Pinnock. Councillor Crook, are you going to respond to that?
I mean, I think there was a question somewhere in there, so I'll
Sorry.
to apologise. Is it on?
Yeah, just now.
I think there was a question in there somewhere. I'm happy to make a comment on this scheme because it does fall in my transport portfolio.
Sorry, Pastor, it's not the scheme itself, it's the...
Councillor Pinnock.
Yeah, I get that.
Councillor Pinnock, thank you.
Yeah, no, I did. Thank you for clarifying. I did understand that bit of the question. Yeah, so obviously we don't have responsibility for national highways assets like the Chamber Roundabout and the motorway network, so we're not able to implement bus lanes beyond the scope of our responsibility. It's not right to say that we don't work with our partners to make sure there's a consistent approach and an interlinked approach to improvements to infrastructure to benefit bus. I think that the sort of short answer is that putting in a bus lane where there's queuing traffic reaching a roundabout will allow the buses to not be in the queue with the cars, so benefit buses, but also allow the buses not to be in the queue with the cars, so benefit the cars. And as we move towards bus franchising and increase patronage on our buses, that will increase even more the number of people that are out of their cars and on the bus. So I think there is an advantage for everyone in this scheme, regardless of the fact that we don't have the remit or the scope to put a traffic light scheme or a bus lane scheme on a massive roundabout over the motorway. So I think, to summarise, we do work together as a region. We do work on regional priorities, and actually bus lanes are a regional priority in terms of our aspiration that more people will use public transport, get out of their cars, and I do believe that will benefit all of the people who use that road, whether they be in car or bus.
Thank you, Councillor Crook. Councillor John Taylor.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. I was just going to contribute to the discussions already been had about how we can be better informed around what's happening at the Combined Authority here in Kirklees. It feels to me there's a role here for scrutiny, so perhaps that's something that the administration could think about how we could enable scrutiny to play a role within this, because they are there to scrutinise what, as an administration, you're doing. Putting my hat on as Chair of Corporate Governance and Audit, when we did our self-assessment of Corporate Governance and Audit about how well we were performing as a committee, one of the things we talked about is we don't have currently any interaction or relationship with the West Yorkshire Combined Authority Audit Committee, and that's something we're looking to address in the next year as well. Because there may be issues that overlap, and we ought to be aware of what's happening there as well. But I'll just leave it that it's just a contribution. Not necessarily a need to respond, but just a contribution.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Councillor Lee Richards.
Hi. Thank you, Madam Mayor. I wanted to ask a question about the Wicker report. It's on page, I think it's 42 of 368 in the back, about biodiversity net gain and responsible body service. Because it says that Wicker wishes to be the responsible body for biodiversity net gain over the all of the authorities under its jurisdiction. And in the paragraph just before it says resolved, it says that members highlighted the importance of a unified approach across all 5 authorities and expressed concern that BNG should be primarily on-site or as close to site as possible, with off-site solutions only considered as a last resort. Leeds City Councils working with other local authorities, and BNG officers from the local authorities were also on board with the approach through planning enforcement, emphasising that on-site development was ideal, but proper execution and monitoring was essential. How are we going to manage that? We seem to be struggling with enforcement in a lot of areas at the moment. Thank you.
Councillor Richards, could you just restate the minute number, please, for people?
It's in the... it's a bit hard to read it on the iPad, but it says page 42 of 386, and it's number 24.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Patterson. Are you...
Yeah, okay.
No, Councillor Turner to respond then, please.
I'll take this because I only had a conversation about BNG only yesterday. BNG is in its early days yet. There's still a lot of working out to be done around how it will impact developers, how it will impact the environment. And one of the things is there has to be an accountable body, and Wicker seems to be the logical choice to do that. There's several options open to us at the moment, which we're going through. There's actually an also of level of what we set BNG at, and at this moment in time we are consulting with our neighbouring authorities not Leeds, actually. Leeds have gone and done their own thing. But we are consulting with our neighbouring authorities, so we're all going to sing up the same hymn sheet when BNG becomes a big thing.
Thank you, Councillor Turner. Councillor Richard Smith.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So I'm going to be brief, but I think I ought to say something because I've been involved with the West Yorkshire Authority for a few years now. I used to chair the Economy Scrutiny Committee, and I'm still the vice chair of what is now a single scrutiny committee. I've listened to what people have said tonight, and I think there's a common theme, and actually the theme would be that it's a complex organisation, and I don't understand the workings of West Yorkshire either myself fully, even though I've been going there for 3 or 4 years now. I think also it's quite clear that people have there's probably a disconnect between what this council can achieve in isolation and what it can achieve in collaboration with the West Yorkshire Authority. It's a really complicated setup, and I think that I don't know if it's got better or worse since we've had a directly elected mayor, but I think John's point about scrutiny, given that I sit on West Yorkshire scrutiny, I think the point he was making was about this council's scrutiny, but there's probably an opportunity for us to look at a conversation between our scrutiny and the West Yorkshire scrutiny. There is actually a meeting this Friday that I'm attending, and I think obviously it's too soon to do it then, but you know these meetings happen 9, 10 times a year. I think we should probably look at that. There was another point as well, and I think really it's just that if I feel as though the organisation of West Yorkshire itself is so complicated that, and there is this discussion between the respective authorities as well, and I feel as though it's not really easy for one council to get its voice heard, and I think that, you know, take out the party politics of this. I think if the leader of this council and my colleague on my left, the leader of my group, and whoever else, you know, we should all be looking at this together and looking at working together on this one. So that was all I wanted to say, really. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Patterson, do you wish to respond?
Thank you. I mean, it's really only what I said before. Yes, I think, I mean, especially with the new health responsibilities, the new planning responsibilities, the new housing responsibilities that are likely to come the Mayor's way, the West Yorkshire Mayor's way, the role that mayors across the country will take or have in relationship to the government puts again our relationship with those combined authorities in a slightly different place. So I do think we need to revisit how we do I say coordinate all that work, and how everybody who is involved, and as has been pointed out, I mean, and just the fact that 2 of my cabinet members have felt that they were in the best place to answer some of those questions just shows how broadly this work, that relationship with West Yorkshire has now become, and we need to make sure we're on top of that, to make sure that we do get our fair share. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other comments or questions on this item? No? Okay, thank you very much. We will now move to item 9, the review of the Council's Gambling Act 2005, Statements of Licensing Principles. This is reference from Licensing and Safety Committee. Councillor Firth.
Members, there is a statutory requirement, I managed to say that, for the Council to publish a statement of principles every 3 years. The Council's current policy came into effect in 2022. Since its review in 2022, there have been no updates by the Gambling Commission to the guidance issued to local authorities. Therefore, there are no significant changes to the policy. Despite this, a review and consultation has been required by law. The consultation has been carried out in accordance with the requirements set out in the Gambling Act 2005, and there were no responses received. This matter was brought to the Licensing and Safety Committee on the 3rd of July 2025, where it was resolved to formally submit the matter to the Council for the policy to be adopted. So, members, therefore, I move that the Council approve and adopt the revised Gambling Act Statement of Principles 2025 to 2028 as attached at Appendix 1 of the report. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Firth. Is that seconded? Councillor Ballamy.
Seconded, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Are there any comments on this item? No? Councillor Firth, you have the right of reply if you want it, but I take it you don't want to. Thank you. So we'll now move to the vote on the consoles, please. Has everybody voted? Yes? I think that's carried then. Thank you. Move to item 10 then, the Kirklees Inclusive Economic Strategy. This is reference from Cabinet. I believe Councillor Turner, you're speaking on this item.
So, Madam Mayor, I rise this evening to present the new Inclusive Economic Strategy. And before we get into the meat of it, I'd like to thank the team who's developed this, because it's quite a piece of work. So, but thanks very much, because it has taken a little while, and it's time consuming. And they've worked with our other local authorities as well. So, this report was presented to Cabinet, as you pointed out, last week, and I now ask the Council to receive this report. The strategy aligns with the West Yorkshire Local Growth Plan and the UK Modern Industrial Strategy. It's vital that the strategy aligns with all our West Yorkshire colleagues as well as the government's growth agenda. We cannot work in isolation. It's a genuine partnership approach, emphasising collaboration with business and economic partners. It's of strategic importance as the final top-tier strategy, complementing the inclusive communities framework, health and wellbeing strategy, and environment strategy. The objectives of the plan are to produce a productive, inclusive and sustainable economy. It aims to develop a local economy that is productive, inclusive and environmentally sustainable. It will support local economic growth, that's vital to us here in Kirklees, and aligns with regional and national strategies, as I have said. It establishes a platform for engagement with business and economic partners to identify growth, skills and investment opportunities. There is huge potential for investment in Kirklees, and by adopting this strategy, we are sending out the clear message: we are open for business, we are looking for growth both in our existing business and want to attract other companies that are new to Kirklees to invest in Kirklees. Help us create the Kirklees economy of the future. Madam Mayor, can I move the Kirklees economic strategy be approved this evening?
Thank you, Councillor Turner. Councillor Pattison, are you seconding this?
Yes, I'll second it, thank you, and reserve the right.
Thank you. Just hang on a tick. Are there any comments on this item? Councillor John Taylor.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Turner, for presenting the report, and I echo your comments about officers that have been working on this. The economic strategy talks about the economic partnership and partnership with businesses. I've read this end to end, and there's only one reference of one word to the farming community. So the farming community is a big part of our rural areas. You get a long way through the document before it mentions the word agriculture, where it says in the rural areas it's a mixed economy, including agriculture. There's no engagement with the farming community. It doesn't appear they've been engaged in developing this strategy. and yet they are a significant employer in Kirklees. And it's more than they're a significant employer. They're a significant custodian of our countryside. And, you know, the health and social values of that, over and above the economic value, would suggest that they ought to be at least recognised and engaged with and included in our strategy. And they're nowhere. And when at Cabinet last week, when I asked the leader about how many times she'd met with the farming community, which was an ask of a motion this council passed earlier in the year, she said she hadn't met with them and didn't know how to engage with them. I followed that up with officers, to be fair, and they promised to come back to me, and they promised to come back to me at the beginning of this week with examples of how they do engage with the farming community. You won't be surprised to hear that I've not actually had anything back. Yeah, so the beginning of the week, we're more than halfway through. So I'm concerned that, yes, there's a lot of good stuff in here, but there's a huge hole in it as well. And particularly when you represent a ward like mine, where farming is an important part of the villages and the communities that I represent. And we all know that farming is in a bit of crisis at the moment for a variety of reasons. You know, to see nothing from Kirklees, no consideration, no engagement, no involvement, no plan to work with or help the farming community, I think is shameful on this administration. And I think they need to go away and reflect what it is they need to be doing to support our farming community, as well as the work that they wish to do with the health sector and with the textile sector and with the high-end engineering, all of which I'm fully supportive of. So it's not, don't do what we're doing. Yes, do what we're doing, but you need to pick up and recognise that there's a significant part of our community, our business community, that creates lots of jobs, lots of small businesses, and those associated businesses that support farming. They've been totally neglected in this strategy. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Sure, thank you. Councillor Lawson.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm presuming you're missing this, you're meaning this, Lawson. Yes, thank you. Thank you, good. Thanks to officers again. We know how difficult their jobs are at the moment. They're very busy, so it's much appreciated that they've been able to bring this report to us for our consideration. And I just wanted to air a few comments and a couple of questions. So roughly in an order of appearance. The comment that ward councillors were engaged through growth and regen scrutiny panel, I think this highlights just how limited consultation has been. Maybe 20 or so councillors have seen this document, and there has certainly been no engagement at ward level to find out what's going on in our communities. I agree with much of the evidence-based findings in the report, but where the strategy falls short is in the so what category. There is very little in the way of implementation other than the pre-existing George Hotel, Cultural Heart and Dewsbury Riverside, which begs the question, how many of the estimated 17,500 separate businesses are going to benefit from the millions spent in the George Hotel? With other members in this chamber, I sit on WICA scrutiny, and we recently had their local growth plan in front of us. An interesting document that relies on the principle of economic densification and the development of existing centres and loosely based around the rail infrastructure in the region. The map they used caused quite a lot of grief to anybody who was there. They'll have witnessed it. But I'm glad to say that none of our members in this chamber actually went down the same rabbit hole, so well done to everybody who kind of resisted the temptation. The densification, though, there's no mention of Kirklees aligning with that aim. So are we going to follow that model or do something that is best for us? The question we need to ask is, when is growth not growth? The answer is when it's migration, either from rural, as Councillor Taylor said, to urban, or old to new developments. WICA say that they have a matrix to measure this and other granular details. Do we have that similar matrix? The thing that was also present in the WICA meeting, which I don't see reflected here, is the business partners. You can't make this kind of strategy and hope for it to work without asking businesses what they want, and without asking communities what they want, or more accurately, what they need. Some of the meetings described in page 89 of the summary go back to early 2023. The world has turned since then, and it's a very different place. Without up-to-date consultation, this risks falling into the trap of creating a document that exists in isolation, and we don't have that luxury anymore. Meaningful consultation, implementation with timescales and milestones, with KPIs if necessary. We need rigorous examination of the data and intel produced from the growth and inclusion. Thank you, Matt.
Thank you, Councillor Lawson. Councillor Paul Moore, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I asked this question at Cabinet last week, but Councillor Turner did not answer my specific question, so I will ask it again. In the report, it states our diverse network of larger towns, Huddersfield and Dewsbury, are evolving as centres for shopping, leisure and community activity. However, at present, Dewsbury has virtually no retail offer. This is one of the key reasons, alongside concerns about personal safety, why large numbers of people have stopped coming into the town. So as part of this strategy for Kirklees, what specific plans and discussions have taken place to attract new businesses, particularly in the retail sector, back into Dewsbury, to give shoppers a reason to come back into the town? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Moore. We move to Councillor Lee Richards, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to commend the officers for their hard work on this, but on page, sorry, me and technology don't always get on. Vision 2030, it says the last bullet point, we will contribute positively to achieving net zero and the transition to a low carbon economy and protect and enhance our natural environment as a vital economic asset. Since we declared a climate emergency in 2019 and we're sort of 6 years on, what have we achieved so far and what are we hoping that this strategy will achieve for the district in future, please?
Thank you. Councillor Mark Thompson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd just like to know, as far as the banner slogan of "We're open for business," how we're going to actually help small business in the borough. With many businesses closing, in fact, Small Business Federation has recorded record closures of small businesses over the last year or so. Some of the problems are employer national insurance increasing, the VAT rules changing, and also minimum wage being escalated over the last year or so. It has an impact on small local businesses to the degree where quite a few of our businesses in our ward are downsizing employment, therefore creating liability as far as the unemployment figures are concerned and universal credit payments. So when we say that we're open for business, what do we actually do? Well, what we've done lately, apart from all those things, is that we've increased parking fees in certain areas that have encumbered small businesses even further. And I'd just like to know in real terms, what the strategy is and what we're actually going to do for these small businesses that have really, really struggled over the last few years. Thank you, Matt.
Thank you. Councillor Andrew Marchington.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm glad to see in the strategy, page 110, we've still got that integration with our other strategies, particularly the health and wellbeing strategy, the environmental strategy. But it just shows you how difficult it is for those of us in local government to actually shape the area in which we live, in particular when we're working with local businesses, when so much of the decisions that are made that affect business come from central government. So know that central government's increase in employers' national insurance contribution, the hidden tax on employment has increased both charitable and business wages by, in some cases, by up to 10%. And we don't know about that because the headline thing is, we've not increased income tax or employees' national insurance, and that's a worry. Really pleased. There's a lot of really good work over the years about Kirklees' health and wellbeing strategy integrated with the employment strategy. There's that line in actually good quality work is really good for your mental health, but also employers want people who are healthy and can engage with it. And what does concern me, again, with national policies about the changes to welfare benefits and particularly personal independence payments is there's a lack of joined up thinking. It seems to be driven by central government wanting to cut a £5 billion budget as opposed to taking heads up the opportunity to ensure that people with disabilities have the same right and access to employment as everybody else. I think we're absolutely right in Kirklees to call this an inclusive employment strategy, and it just upsets me the number of people I do casework for who want to work, but it's made too difficult from them. They might have a disability, and the easiest thing for their employer to do is to make them redundant, to sign them off, and that just compounds all of the problems. So central government, working in partnership, and that's the word we use, with local government, needs to make sure that all those policies work together. And I think the other example I've got is the people I support with universal credit. People who want to work, perhaps they've got family responsibilities, might be caring for disabled members of their family, but they're pushed into working longer and longer hours, and that can have an impact on their health and well-being. They end up, it's easier, both from a health point of view and employment point of view, not to employ them together. So we need an integrated approach from bottom to top, and we can't do that alone in Kirklees, as good as our local strategies might be. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Marchington. Councillor David Hall.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This is turning out to be a really interesting debate, actually, and it's a very important part of what the council does. So we should take the time over discussing it properly. One or two comments to make on this. The first is about the vision. I mean, this document is to 2030, and it seems to me that's quite a short term, actually, for what should be a long-term vision as to where we want Kirklees to be economically. 2030 doesn't seem very long, or 4.5 years. Well, I mean, it'll be here and there before you know it. And following on from the comments that other members have already made in this debate, it would seem to me that perhaps a better way of doing it would be to set an objective and a vision quite a long term into the future and say, you know, in not 4.5 years' time, but 10 years, 15, 20 even years' time, this is what we want the borough to be, this is how we want it to work. And then have a regular refresh. Do the work with the partners every 3 or 4 years and say, is that still right? Yep, that's mostly right, we're just going to tweak it a bit, but we know where we're heading and we need to just steer the boat occasionally round the rocks so that we get there. So that was the first point. The second was about the needs of small, medium-sized enterprises, businesses, which Councillor Thompson has made. And this did leap out at me as well, because these kind of strategies are no good if we just put them on a paper and then put them in a drawer. We actually need them to achieve something. And working with our smaller businesses is the way we're going to drive prosperity in the borough. So we need it to be informing all the policies of the council. So here's an example. How do we help our small builders and small developers get the plots, get the planning through, make the money, employ the people? Because at the moment we've got, unfortunately, a lot of smaller builders and smaller enterprises. And of course, we say builders, but there's an awful lot of a chain behind the builders into supply, in the supply chain there, who actually can't get the foot on the ladder at the moment because they've either got a plot and they're waiting so long for planning permission that they're having to lay people off because they can't keep them in employment, or they can't find the plot. For instance, council sells land and we're selling land, you know, in my ward, 180 houses. Well, the only people that are going to take on a plot for 180 houses are going to be the big boys, and all that money will flow out of the authority. So maybe thinking about in the local plan releasing land in smaller plots so we can help smaller businesses. I'm taking it that the partnership as a whole, the Kirklees partnership, is content with this document. I'm presuming that it wouldn't be brought here if our partners had made any strong objections to anything within it. But we do need that assurance. So we need that assurance. We need the assurance on the that we will work with to make life better for our small businesses. We need assurances, as Councillor Taylor raised, about working with our agricultural workers and the farmers. And we need an assurance that this is going to feed into a long-term vision for Kirklees. There is some good stuff in here. Because this is not the document that any other party would probably come up with, because we're all different. It's not exactly as we would like it, but I think it would be churlish and probably irresponsible to throw the baby out with the bathwater for the sake of these things. So provided we can have an assurance on some of these things, I'd be happy to give this document the benefit of the doubt and support it.
Thank you. Councillor Andrew Pinnock.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. When I first saw this, I saw the front page, and it says, Ward councillors have been engaged through the strategies presentation at Growth and Regeneration Scrutiny Panel. Well, that may well have been the case, but they didn't do a very good publicity job because some of us didn't know about it. And the idea of having an inclusive economic strategy sounds absolutely brilliant. It's a really good idea to try and include everybody. Now, isn't that original? But it is, but it's a shame that fuller engagement was not achieved on this, because it's a council document. It's a shame that it had to be done that way through a scrutiny panel rather than some other better way of doing it. And various comments have already been made about small businesses and so on. Just a few days ago, I walked round Cleckheaton Town Centre looking at shops, and other premises for a tidy trader competition. And one of the things that the three of us who were doing this noticed was how many of these names had changed. And that is a bit of a symptom, I think, of, to a degree, the impermanence of some small businesses. Somehow or other, in order to get the flourishing of our town centres, and this is all of our town centres, not just Huddersfield. I'm talking about Cleckheaton here, obviously, but other places as well. We've got to do all of them, not just bits of it. Is to get businesses that get set up and employ people, provide services, and last. And I also want to take up a point. Councillor Taylor might be surprised to hear me say this, but his point about agriculture. It's not just the rural parts of Kirklees that have got farms, you know. We've got several in our ward. And some of them are struggling because, in our ward and the edges of it. Because there's one I'm thinking of particularly that's actually in Councillor Hall's ward, but it's on the edge. It's run by just the family, and they are on the edge. And these people are doing an absolutely wonderful job looking after the countryside that is around our towns. Not just that, they're also providing food for the rest of us as well. And we've got at least one dairy farm in the ward as well. So I think this strategy is a brilliant idea. And from what I've seen, a lot of it is very good, but I'm sure we can do more to make sure that everybody is invited, if you like. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Pinnock. Councillor Patterson, you reserve the right.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. Well, there's an awful lot of comments there, aren't there? And they're useful comments because it does give myself and Graham Turner the opportunity, I think, to come back and just perhaps expand a little bit. I mean, because as has been said by several people, this is a big, big piece of work, which we really need to thank our officers for. They've been working on it for a long time, and it is an extensive piece of work. And of course, really, what you've got here is the top of the iceberg, or the tip of the iceberg. There's a lot more, obviously, behind all of these words. I mean, just to pick out a few things, I mean, to take John Taylor's comment on the farming community, yes, I do take your point, John, and they are referenced here, well, in as far as it does say, there's a whole section on thriving rural communities. And whilst it doesn't go, that section doesn't go into detail of how we relate to farming, how we can help farmers, it does talk about how we can actually help rural communities. And there's more, there has to be more besides. We couldn't put absolutely everything into this document. I mean, of course, as well, it does very much align with West Yorkshire Combined Authority's economic growth plan and the government's industrial strategy as well. All three have been designed to join up together, have many of the same pillars in them, and that's been perhaps one reason why ours has been a little bit delayed, because we wanted to make sure that there was that joined upness. SMEs, of course, we recognise the importance of SMEs. They make up the vast majority of our businesses, don't they? They always will. But that doesn't mean we don't look forward, that we don't encourage new SMEs in whatever it might be, in health research, be in engineering or whatever, that we still will support those SMEs, and so will this strategy. I can't give Sue Lee Richards the answer she wants exactly on how far we've got in terms of vision, the vision for 2030 in terms of emissions, etc. But I mean, it has been reported before now that we are actually doing quite well. We're over halfway through meeting our target on that. So and that actually reminds me of the other point. This is only a 5-year strategy. Well, if you think back, what was it like 5 years ago? Well, we were in the middle of COVID then, weren't we? But even if we hadn't had COVID to disrupt everything then, the world was quite a different place. AI hadn't even come on the scene then. And if you go back another 5 years before that, it was, again, a completely different place. So 5 years, as much as it'd be great if we can look forward to 10 years, 15 years, and perhaps we should be, well, I'm not saying we're not doing that, to be honest, but to try and say anything definite about what the world is going to be like beyond 2030 feels very difficult just at the moment. Sorry, I'm just reading. Oh, yeah, just in terms of the engagement, I mean, I think engagement has gone on a lot for a number of years, even on the implications or the people having some input into this. Businesses have been engaged via our partnership, the picture of Kirklees and things like that. There's a lot of ways, different ways, which are not necessarily mentioned here, that we have engaged people in pulling all this together. In the research that we do, the information that our officers gather to put into this document, which is a weighty document. I will just briefly touch on Councillor Moore's question about shoppers in Dewsbury. It's not just shoppers we want to encourage to come into Dewsbury. We want all sorts of economic activity or leisure pursuits happening in Dewsbury, as we do in any of our towns. And we are working to great effect, I think, to achieve that. And lastly, just to say to Councillor Hall, yes, we can give him that assurance. It would be, again, foolish of us not to. So, yes, certainly you can have that assurance. But I'll hand over to Graham now to perhaps pick up on some things that I haven't.
Councillor Turner, you have the right to reply.
So most of the points that's been raised this evening, and I take David's point, it's 2030, doesn't seem that far away, but as Carol rightly pointed out, we're in a different world than we were. Who spotted COVID coming? Who spotted that Russia would decide to invade a sovereign nation? Who spotted that we might have an American president who thinks that increasing tariffs daily or taking them away is going to help the world economy? So there's lots of things that, ideally, yes, we like longer, but I think that's a reasonable assumption. That doesn't mean to say that we're not thinking that longer term, because the investment zone is a 5, 10, 15-year project. So that's the longer term view. So we're already thinking longer term how we develop that, but it's just not necessarily included in the strategy in numbers. But we are obviously looking longer term investment down in the investment zone with the support of WICA and the government on that. So that's a really important thing. So, mentioned there was this scrutiny. The scrutiny members could have reported back to their groups. Scrutiny papers are available online for anybody to read them. Scrutiny is open to other members. They could have come along and spoke to scrutiny. So I think it's actually the right way to do this is for it to go through scrutiny and let them have a really good look at it, which is what happened. So I'm more than happy with that. As I said, those opportunities were there. I will have a conversation. Are you listening, John? I will have a conversation about the agricultural sector. One of the problems you've got, and I speak as someone whose father was a farm worker when I was born, so my formative years were spent on a farm, they are a bit hard to reach. They tend to be very insular, and they don't speak with one voice. I once remember a famous old West Yorkshire farmer who said to me, "Hey lad, there's no point arguing about weather because we'd only want something different." So they are a very secular group almost. If you're an Alder farmer, you've got different issues to dairy farmers. So, but I will have a conversation and see how we've engaged them. If not, we'll try and engage them. And small business, there's mention of national insurance, which what a surprise, and living wage going up, what a surprise. Those are out of our control. I can assure you we have a very, very good business team, very small, but they're constantly engaging with small businesses and some of our larger ones to an extent, but they're constantly engaging with small businesses, as do I. I'm going tomorrow afternoon to meet a small business up the valley to discuss how we can help them. So we are constantly engaging with them, but there is a limit to what we can do with the limited resources. But any small business wants to talk to me, just drop me an email, give me a ring. I'm more than happy to talk to them. I speak to them all the time. Going back to building, yes, we need to build more houses. Again, we have a regular meeting with builders, with what we call the consortium. We have a regular meeting with them to try and iron out problems around planning, all those sorts of issues. But you mustn't forget, is despite what they will tell you how, yes, we're a little bit slow, we accept that, but we haven't got enough planning officers, but we achieve way above our target. We accept more than 88% of applications, so we might take a little bit longer, but they usually get the outcome they want, which is way above the government target. So again, we are doing something to improve that as well, and the new planning legislation that's coming through will also help improve that process. Councillor Moore says I didn't give him an answer last week. I did give you an answer. Just because you don't like it doesn't mean to say it's not an answer. The renovation, let's look at what's going on in Egypt. The renovation of the historic Dewsbury Arcade, the conversion of field house into new housing, alongside ongoing planning to deliver more town centre homes, to create a vibrant, sustainable economy. Public realm improvements to Bond Street and the Civic Square, creating more welcoming and attractive spaces. Enhancements for the bus station, although it's a wicked project, and the redevelopment of a new police station just north of the town centre. Dewsbury Market will begin shortly to be redeveloped, and that will bring us an exciting, modern market back to Dewsbury. Station apartments, another exciting development. £20 million over the next 10 years through what we used to call levelling up fund. There's a massive regeneration programme in Dewsbury, and we started to see external investment from private sector. We've got a bowling alley in Dewsbury, not that I've been myself, but we have a bowling alley, in private investment coming to Dewsbury, a new supermarket, private investment coming to Dewsbury. So the private sector are now recognising that Dewsbury is a place to invest in. So absolutely, Dewsbury in the next 5 or 10 years will be a different place. Plus the fact is, the biggest game changer was TransPennine upgrade. We'll put you minutes from Leeds. Absolutely phenomenal. So yes, there's lots going on in Dewsbury. It's not the downtrodden place that you keep saying. And like I said last week, and I will keep reiterating, stop talking it down.
Thank you, Councillor Turner. We will now move to the vote, and after the vote we will take our break. So on the consoles, please, we will vote on this item. Has everybody voted? Yes? Yeah, that's carried. Thank you. We will now break for 15 minutes. Thank you. Thank you. We will now turn to agenda item 11, the Council Financial Outturn and Rollover Report 24-25, incorporating the General Fund Revenue, Housing Revenue Account, Capital and Treasury Management, when I can get my words out. And this is a reference from Cabinet. Councillor Turner, please.
Madam Mayor, thank you. As you rightly point out, this report is here following last week's Cabinet meeting where it was discussed in detail. This is, as you would expect, a rather lengthy report, so I'm just going to give a brief overview. So this report provides information on the Council's financial outturn position for General Fund Revenue, Housing Revenue Account, the HRA and the Capital Plan. Seeks Council's approval of the creation of the Strategic Budget, Contingency Reserve and Capital Rollover proposals. Key points being General Fund improved revenue outturn position with a £5.6 million overspend, down from 9.3 at Q3. Reserves, year-end reserves and balances of 61 million, with the general reserve remaining at 25, which is obviously as low as we would ever wish to go. Capital outturn position of 140.6 for 24-25, with 13.7 capital slippage to 25-26. HRA an underspend of 1.3 million, with the year-end balance, reserve balance of 30.6. I would like to thank Kevin and his team for preparing this report and providing the level of detail contained in the plan. As is now the norm, it was a challenging year for the Council financially, as we saw rising demand across many services for a variety of reasons, but strict control of budgets by officers across the Council ensured we finished the year with a slight overspend of £5.6 million. Of course, I would have preferred to come in on budget, but given quite high inflation and increased demand, as which I just mentioned, we were, and where we were early in the year with a predicted significantly higher overspend, I believe this is a reasonable position to be in at year end. The overspend represents approximately 1.5% of the revenue budget. Continuing capital receipts will support the Council's budget and reduce long-term revenue commitments. Disposal of surplus assets will reduce maintenance liabilities and contribute to savings, thus supporting the revenue budget in the coming years. At Cabinet, there was some discussion around the capital spend and the failure to deliver all our capital projects. This is not unusual. Disappointing, yes, but as I say, not unusual. I can't ever remember a time when all our capital plans have been delivered. And there's a multitude of reasons why this happens. However, I would rather fail to deliver on our CapEx spending and get part of the way through the year and find we run out of projects. It's better to be ambitious and meet out some projects than to run out of projects. We continue to remain ambitious and will continue to have lots of investment lined up as we continue to grow our local economy and public service after years of underinvestment in local authorities. I welcome the announcement by the Government that we will have a 3-year settlement, as this is good news, as this will allow us to plan better for the future and have a more meaningful MTFP. We have done some early modelling based on the information we have had so far from Government, and whilst we are not out of the woods yet, I am more optimistic that the current Labour Government is starting to reverse the trend of underinvesting in local government that we've seen for 14 years. Madam Mayor, can I move that the Council notes the 24-25 financial outturn position for General Fund Revenue, the HRA, Capital Plan, including proposals for capital rollover from 24-25 to 25-26. Council approves the creation of the Strategic Budget like being in a contagious ward. Council approves the creation of a Strategic Budget Contingency Reserve with a balance of 3.5 at 31/3/25, funded from the Voluntary Revenue Provision Reserve. Council approves 13.7 capital slippage from 24-25 to 25-26 and the removal of 0.4 million committed rollover from the Capital Plan. And Council notes the annual review of the Treasury Management activity. Thank you.
Thank you. Is that seconded, Councillor Patterson?
Second that and reserve the right.
Thank you. Okay. Are there any comments on this item? Councillor John Taylor.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Graham, for the report. And I'd like to echo your comments on officers and the work officers have done to pull this together and get this to us so we can comment on it. I did come to Cabinet last week to speak on this agenda item, and I just want to reiterate a couple of points that you made. You've spoken a little bit today about the capital plan. I would invite members to look at 3.2.26, which talks about the capital plan. The administration set out an ambition to spend 340.8 million capital in a year and ended up spending 140.6 million. Now, that's not some slippage. That's a huge amount of change and reduction. And the reason why it's important is because when the budget was put together, stating an ambition to spend 340.8 million meant that we had to put aside revenue to support the costs of that planned borrowing. Had we been more realistic with our outset and our ambition, it would have freed up some revenue to have been used elsewhere. So it's not that there wasn't a cost. There was a cost that some services weren't delivered because we overestimated how much capital we were going to spend in a year. And this has happened year after year after year in terms of the capital plan always slipping. But this is the first time we've seen such a large discrepancy between the ambition and what was actually delivered. And I do worry if we saw that to continue. And I know Councillor Turner will tell me that they're going to review this line by line with the Section 151 officer, and I do have confidence in the new Section 151 officer that will get under the skin of this. But we do need to recognise that failing to be closer in terms of our estimating about what the ambition was and what was delivered did have a knock-on effect on the revenue budget. I'd also draw members' attentions to Section 3.2.18, because in this section it talks about stopping expenditure not deemed to be critical to service delivery. Well, I seem to remember in 2022 this administration telling me that they were stopping all non-essential spending. So I'm a little confused what the difference is between non-essential spend and expenditure not deemed to be critical. Because I would have thought they were the one and the same. And I have consistently, since 2022, through scrutiny, through corporate governance and audit, and through Cabinet, and through these meetings, talked about examples where I've seen spending that I didn't deem as critical or essential, still continuing when we were struggling with our budgets. So there's a lot to be welcomed in this budget, in this update, in terms of the turnaround and the scale of the turnaround. But I don't think we should forget that if we'd have been better at budgeting, if we'd been tighter in ensuring expenditure deemed not to be critical was the same as non-essential spend, we probably would have had a little more wriggle room when we were putting our budget together this year, which would have made it easier for everyone, but particularly our residents. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Could I ask members if they've got electronic equipment, can you please make sure it is on silent, please? Thank you. Councillor Lawson.
Thank you, Mayor. And echo Councillor Taylor's thoughts and thanks for this coming here today and for Councillor Turner's comments. I'm not going to talk for long on this. I'm just going to point out the twin albatrosses around our necks financially, Cultural Heart and the George Hotel projects. We've been repeatedly warned that they represent a red flag for our future financial stability, potentially jeopardising vital council services. Our external auditors have flagged it twice, and when an auditor does that, they do it for a reason, and you should sit up and take notice and act. Time will tell if the reshaping will work as Cabinet hopes and if it will be enough. The recent peer review highlighted the very same issues and the potential impacts on services. The equation is really quite simple. Borrow to the hilt and spend large amounts of revenue cash on debt servicing for the next 50 years in some cases, and as the cost and demand of those services rise, you'll be able to afford fewer and fewer of them as you go on. So no matter what the previous government did, or this government is or isn't doing, there's no getting away from the fact that this Cabinet has made deliberate choices that negatively impact our capacity to deliver services to those who most need them. It impacts our ability to deal with all of our services and capital manoeuvrability, from cutting grass to maintaining our heritage sites. And I'm going to mention Oakenshaw Cross and Cleckheaton Town Hall because we've all got similar issues. It does leave us excessively exposed to world events, and we were talking about macroeconomics earlier, as well as national issues. Interest rates have gone up again recently, and you might think, well, that won't affect the cost of borrowing. You'd be right-ish, but it does put up the cost of stuff, and we have to buy the services that we need to procure. And we have nowhere to run to when this happens at scale. Our budgets are fairly small. They will not withstand a large-scale change of that nature. Now, I hope this year's budget is less fevered than last, but I somehow doubt it. And I look forward to the budget book arriving. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Andrew Marchington.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It's usually been a fairly straightforward report every year, the revenue outturn, and it just shows you how things have changed over the last 20 years, when at the end of each year we had a sort of small or significant surplus, which we could be using to invest in areas that we all would want to, but also departments, and we've lost that wiggle room. And it does concern me about the capital plan, and I think given the changeable nature of political leadership in the council, we do sooner rather than later need to all look into that. Because if the figures that Councillor Taylor quoted are correct, if the council had delivered on that £200 million worth of capital, we'd be looking at a £20 million deficit in our budget, not a £5 million deficit in our budget. That's very close to half of the black hole we're told that we inherited. So we do need to look at our capital spend, because it has, and I think some of that capital's been delayed in its costs. So over time, that is going to add extra £16 million worth of borrowing costs to the council's revenue budget, and that worries me. And again, because of what's happening nationally, things outside our control. So long-term borrowing costs in the 30 to 40 to 50-year range are going up. You might be getting 4 or 5%, 3 or 4% in your building society. Government bonds, they're costing about 5 or 6% at the moment, 5%, sorry. And that's a long-term cost. So, and I don't see that getting any better. And every time there's an international concern or a national statement comes out, long-term borrowing is a problem. So I do think we need to look at the capital plan. I think some of us tried to do that in the budget, council's budget in February. We don't believe we were listened to, so we do need to do that. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Scott.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. My comment, I did actually bring it to Cabinet this week, and whilst it was partially answered, I think it's important that this chamber actually listens. In this outturn report, it's important that you note that Buxton House project had stopped. And to me, that's worrying, because as a chamber of 69 councillors, we agreed financial support for these projects to take place. And yet again, that's another one that's been withdrawn. I'm really concerned about this because I think there should be a new dynamic way that you're reporting it sooner to councillors rather than leaving us to go through hundreds of pages to find that little minutiae detail, which is not very good. And when I did ask the question at Cabinet, one of the answers that was muttered in the background was said, it's HRA money, so it's nothing to do with you. Well, of course it's something to do with you. It's rent payers' money that pay it to the council.
Are there any other comments on this item? No. Councillor Pattison, you reserve the right. Do you want to come back at all?
Because I think some of these need a really detailed response. I'm sorry, well, not sorry, but I'll ask Councillor Turner to.
Councillor Turner, you've the right of reply.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. thank you for all those comments and questions, etc. John, you did mention last week at Cabinet that if we'd have delivered the capital plan, how much we would have been better off by. Well, we did some numbers, and it's about 56k. So it's insignificant amount compared to our overall budget. So yes, it has an impact, but it's the best we could get to, the nearest we could get to, was £56,000. So it's in, as I said, a very small amount. I mentioned this again at Cabinet last week, and it's been mentioned earlier. Myself and Section 151 officer are going to go through the capital plan and look at every single plan and ask in there and look at them and see if there's any that's out of date, any that's not in with our modern priorities, and go through it with a fine-tooth comb and remove anything that is not relevant, etc. Borrowing as a percentage of our general revenue budget is what I would call about middle. If you look at the most local authorities, our revenues, and I say our borrowing and revenue costs is about middle. So we're not the best, we're not the worst, we're about middle, and I don't think that's too bad a place to be. We're always going to have to borrow money to invest in capital plans, and as I say, the capital plan is affordable, and I understand the auditors red flagged that. I used to work in businesses where I was regularly audited, and the joke was what they're going to find before they go, because they didn't find anything. It made them look like they're doing the job. So yes, we are aware of the impact, but I'm not sure it's as bad as they made out. It's affordable, it's costed. Buxton House, it is an HRA project, and I wasn't aware that the project had been pulled because it was discussed when I was on holiday. Moses maybe wish to add to that, but my understanding is that the costs have come back, and unfortunately the costs that come back at this round, we may have to go out to someone else, make the project very, very expensive. So we're having to reappraise that. But I don't know the details. I was on holiday when it was discussed by Cabinet. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Turner. We will now go to the vote using the consoles, please, for this item. Okay, has everybody voted? That's carried. Yes? That's carried. Thank you. We will now move to item 12, Community Governance Review. Councillor Dadd.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Can I just apologise for all the coughing? It's not deliberate. I'm trying my best. So I will move that the Council approves the undertaking of a community governance review in accordance with the relevant legal framework and government guidance, and in line with the Corporate Governance and Audit Committee's terms of reference. Council to delegate to the committee to agree the terms of reference of the review and oversee delivery. Thank you.
Thank you. Is that seconded, Councillor Taylor?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Happy to second and reserve the right. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any comments on this matter? Councillor Munro.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So, parish councils play an important role in our local villages and communities. Speaking from my own personal experience, I became a parish councillor in 2007, having been elected at a by-election. Parish councils are responsible for their own budget and they are autonomous, and this needs to remain the case. In 2007, Kirkburton Parish Council was a very active body with a competent professional and experienced clerk and assistant. At the time, it was involved in several initiatives and had an active environment committee. Members were positively encouraged to attend training courses to help them actively participate in the work of the parish council and help them understand their roles. Several successful parish council projects were approved, such as the sale of water butts, village plans and fantastic parish council walks. The council reached out to communities, which I'm sure other councils and other parish councils and town councils do. It held an environment fair. It had a stall at Honley Show for many years. I do feel now, to a certain extent, that with specific reference to Kirkburton, that much more could be done to reach out to residents and raise the profile of the council. A community governance review would provide such an opportunity and it would enable residents to feed back so we can understand what they want from their parish council and their town councils. Such a review would provide an opportunity to improve and hopefully strengthen the role of parish and town councils and raise their profile. And I'm in favour of such a review being carried out. I do feel, one thing I'd like to add is that just with reference to my own experience, I think more training needs to be done at parish councils. So parish councillors fully understand their role and the role of the parish council. And more needs to be done to ensure residents are aware of the role of the parish council and the role they play in their area and how they can help bring improvements to those areas. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other comments on this item? No? Councillor Taylor, you reserve the right. Do you wish to say anything? Councillor Dad has the right of reply then.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll pass. Yeah.
Thank you. So we'll now go to... All right, so we will now move to the consuls with the exception of one who will do by a show of hands. Thank you. Has everybody voted? Yes? I think that is carried then. Thank you. We will now move to item 13, written questions to the leader, cabinet members, chairs of committees and nominated spokespersons. A written schedule of submitted questions and responses to those questions have been circulated. I will now invite members to ask any supplementary questions in turn and the appropriate member will respond. One supplementary question to each submitted question is permitted and there is a total of 30 minutes for this item. Councillor Taylor.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And thank you, Councillor Hawkins, for your response. Although you haven't actually answered the question, I've asked what you would like to say to the residents of Flockton who are still waiting for a road service audit that's been outstanding since being agreed in January last year. You didn't actually answer that in your written response. You also in the written response have indicated that I've identified a possible source of funding to pay for such, sorry I've lost my place, to pay for such a road safety audit. I know I'm trying to get back to the question, sorry. But it states that officers said, I've said I'll provide that funding for the audit itself. That's not correct. I said I'd found some funding which could be used to improve things on the back of the audit that is undertaken. So will you commit today to actually ensuring that the audit that was agreed in a public meeting by the Service Director in January 22 will actually happen? And give me some indication of timescales for that. Thank you.
Councillor Hawkins.
Oh, thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Taylor, for your supplementary. I think it's a bit of a creative interpretation there, but in my response to residents, I do share the concerns around slow road safety on Barnsley Road. I cannot really comment on what was said in a meeting in about 18 months ago by an officer who's no longer active in the council, long before I held this portfolio. I've got to play it where it lies as such, and where it lies right now, as I say, I've taken away with officers to review the latest data that we've got, road safety data along Barnsley Road, and I'm more than happy to continue that conversation with you further and residents locally. You know, certainly when it comes to Lanehead Road, I'm not shy of coming out there and looking at the issues myself and speaking to residents, and that offer extends here as well. But as I say, I'll review that. I'll make sure that data gets reviewed first and work with you to look at whether a safety audit is the correct way to proceed.
Thank you. Councillor Safdar, do you have a supplementary?
Yes, I welcome the response I received from Councillor Hawkins regarding the rubble collection, the change in direction, and but I feel that that's a step in the right direction. I'm the first to welcome moves from Cabinet to go in that direction, but I feel that the public may not have been informed effectively, so I propose maybe having conversations regarding a better public information campaign, because that message isn't filtering through, and some residents are still using unlicensed waste carriers, the manner of that operation, that are exacerbating the fighting problem, which is having a huge effect on already stretched resources. So let's have a conversation about, let's try to have genuine collegiate working to inform the public that, look, there are other avenues. You don't have to use these unauthorised services and feel you're getting a good deal, but you can register your vehicle, register your minivan, register your state vehicle, and dispose of this waste correctly at the appropriate sites. But also we talk about hours of access as well. In Cabinet, myself and my colleagues talked about access times, and obviously certain people have got multiple jobs, care responsibilities, school responsibilities, so they may not be able to access the tips during those daylight hours, well, rather the kind of ordinary working hours. So is there a possibility of a public information campaign, as well as maybe an odd evening, like traditionally we used to have Thursday night opening with town centres? Could we have an odd day of once a fortnight where the public members who wish to dispose of DIY and rubble waste can access the tips maybe one evening?
Councillor Hawkins.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Safdar, for your supplementary as well. More than happy to work further to try and get word out there. I feel like the Council's communications team has done a very good job on this, getting the information out on social media, through the local press as well. I feel like it's got quite a good uptake through that. But, of course, we want to make more people aware of the legal routes that they have for disposing of their waste correctly. Inconvenience is not an excuse for disposing of rubbish illegally, and we've got to make that very clear and highlight those legal avenues that are available to them as well. In terms of the opening hours for the tips, there is going to be a wider discussion coming through scrutiny and then through Cabinet, and then I'm sure it will come up in this council around the waste strategy more broadly, how waste services are provided in Kirklees going forward into the future, and that'll be an ideal opportunity to have that discussion so that whatever we can put in place is going to be there for the long term as well. But thank you for your supplementary.
Thank you. Questions 3 and 4 have been withdrawn. So question 5, Councillor Munro, do you have a supplementary?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So my initial question asked when the Council was going to implement flood alleviation measures in Fenny Beck. The written response I have received from Councillor Turner does not address my question. Fenny Beck is identified as being one of the rivers in Kirklees that is at risk of flooding. Kirklees are responsible for implementing measures to help reduce the risk of rivers flooding. So when can we expect a feasibility study to be undertaken on Fenny Beck and measures implemented to alleviate flood risk? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. You will notice from the response that you've had many meetings with Paul Farndale, our Flood Management Officer. And the last private line is, there is an open invite to further discuss specific sites upon your return from annual leave. So if you get in touch with Paul, I'm sure he'll be happy to meet you and discuss the progress.
Okay, thank you. My initial question asked why can't the council do more to support litter picking groups instead of expecting volunteer members to not only dedicate their free time in removing other people's litter from our public spaces, but also now placing a burden on volunteers to dispose of some of the litter themselves and adhere to a growing set of rules. So please can you tell me, so my question is, presumably you are aware that the accumulation of fly tipping and litter can attract rodents, it can attract antisocial behaviour, it can unfortunately be the fuel for wildfires. We had a recent case where litter and fly tipping had been reported but was not removed. This led to a fire which caused a lot of damage to residents' gardens and a home. So do you not agree with me that your policy is not fit for purpose, it does not help community litter picking groups and may deter them from removing litter themselves and can also create a hazardous environment?
Thank you. Councillor Amanda Pinnock.
Councillor Munro, thank you for the question. It is an important question, and it's one which really, gives an opportunity to talk to residents and members of the public about what's available and the reason behind the decision that's been made to limit things. So first of all, I'd like to extend my thanks to volunteers who work hard and put the time in to make sure that our communities are clean, safe and welcoming. And the council does appreciate the work that they do all year round. It's important for me to say that. The council do have a dedicated team called the Kirklees Council Litter Picking Support, which is based down on Vine Street. But in addition to that, there is a dedicated website on the council's, there's a dedicated page, on the council's website to support groups, as well as a dedicated email for groups to get in contact directly with the council. They can get advice, they can arrange litter pickers, black bags, gloves, and so on to help volunteers make a difference in the community. And once litter has been picked, the council will collect that litter. We've supported around 500 litter picks in the last 12 months. So we do a lot. But there's a number of reasons for the restriction. I mean, you say it's a grey area and there's issues around the policy. It's not fit for purpose. The reason for the restrictions is, first of all, to protect fly tippers. Volunteers should not move or attempt to move fly tipping. Firstly, because it could be hazardous waste, putting them at risk, and that's not what we want. Secondly, to ensure that we're able to track hotspot areas to identify perpetrators. If litter pickers collect fly tipping, then it could mean that they interfere with any investigation the council is trying to do to identify who the perpetrators are who are dumping waste. That's obviously what we don't want. We need the evidence so that we can enforce. It's really important. Although we appreciate that the collecting of waste, we appreciate it, it may have an unintended consequence for the council. For example, making it difficult for teams to collect data about fly tipping and meeting our legal obligations, which is really important. Instead of waste being logged as fly tipping, if it's collected, then it can be mistakenly be logged as litter picking. That doesn't help us. We need to monitor fly tipping. We need to monitor hotspots, and that data can then be used for us to set priorities and strategies in relation to tackling fly tipping. And of course, it's important that litter pickers don't go onto areas like private land, because it could be dangerous, as well as they could be seen as trespassing and they could get themselves into trouble in that respect. So the restrictions are there for a reason. They're not there to hinder volunteers, but they're there to protect volunteers and ensure that the council get to do the job that we're supposed to be doing. So in response to what you've just said, it is fit for purpose. It's really important. It's to protect individuals. And that's important as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Question 7, Councillor Munro. Councillor Munro, do you have a supplementary to question 7?
No, Madam Mayor, thank you.
Thank you. Question 8, Councillor Taylor.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Hawkins, for your answer to question 8. In a sense, I've achieved what I wanted to achieve by asking the question. We haven't had adequate parking enforcement in Kirkburton for a long time. We very rarely see traffic wardens. It states here that over the last 6 months have been there on average once a week. It's interesting that 2 days after I submitted that written question, I got a phone call saying, oh, we've got a traffic warden on North Road. So clearly, to other members, written questions do work in terms of getting action. But I would ask that we continue, because we do have real problems with traffic congestion, with car parking in that village. We want to keep the shops vibrant and active, but if they can't park, or if there are people parking causing congestion, there are issues. And we know that there's been issues in this village with, the bins being collected for exactly the same reason. So I would just ask that perhaps we send the traffic wardens out a little more often. They might actually earn you a little bit of money. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Hawkins.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor, for that. I just want to reassure everyone that a total of 24 times in the past 6 months hasn't just been in the past 2 days as well. So it's been continuous throughout the past 6 months. And as more resource becomes available, I'll certainly be batting for us to do more on parking enforcement. As you say, it's vitally important for our towns and village centres that people, certainly back to the inclusive economy strategy, that people can actually access the shops and spend money locally. But at the same time, I'm probably stating the obvious here, Kirklees is a very big place. I think we all can think of certain areas in our wards where there are issues around parking. If I had a penny for every time we'd have parking issues outside schools, I think we'd be having this council meeting in the Bahamas. So it's very much important that we're addressing the parking enforcement across the borough. But very much so, Kirkburton is a very important village as well. So I'm very much looking forward to the parking enforcement continuing.
Thank you. Question 9, Councillor Vickers. Do you have a supplementary?
I do, yes, thank you. Thank you for your answer regarding the new development on the Black Cat fireworks site. Based on the recent developments that have been built in Netherton, 770 homes at the Black Cat site will, at a conservative estimate, when filled, put around 1,000 more cars on the road, add 1,500 more people who need to register with doctors' surgeries, and possibly, and based on the fact that these homes are targeted towards young families, it's likely that there will be around 500 children who will need school places and further children needing nursery spaces. I've spoken to staff at 8 junior and infant schools close to this site, and they are nearly all at capacity. One school has approximately 45 places across all age groups available, and the rest are full. Teachers and teaching assistants are concerned about the increasing numbers of children with SEND needs in the area and how they'll be able to support the numbers that they have currently without adding additional numbers. Although Section 106 money will be provided to help ease school placement pressure, how specifically will this be implemented? The doctor's surgeries in the area are struggling to accommodate the patients that they already have on their books, with some residents reporting 3 to 4 weeks waiting times for general appointments. I'm aware that the site has space for a GP surgery, but as there's a national shortage of doctors, this could prove challenging to staff. Local NHS dentists in the area are full, with a 2 to 3 year waiting list. Waste services are stretched to the limit. Blackmorefoot Road is already a speeding and inconsiderate driving hotspot, as evidenced by Operation Trimberg over the past 6 months, and Feltstyle Road is a one-lane road in places which will struggle to cope with increased usage. Can you let our residents know how these issues will be addressed when 770 new houses are built on the old Black Cat fireworks site?
Thank you. Councillor Turner.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you very much, Councillor Vickers, for the supplementary question. As I pointed out in my original response, this was adopted as part of the local plan back in February 2019. So it's been around a significant amount of time. It's also got outline planning permission already. So research around the road capacity will have been taken into account of that. It's 770 units. Now, traditionally, that will take you probably 15 years to build out. So as houses become occupied, we monitor on a daily or a weekly basis school places. There's a contribution of £1,312,000 based on the 770 dwellings to be spent on private administration area schools. So there's money there to take any pupil numbers increase. It's, given the fact that the speed of build out on such a large site isn't going to be huge, we'll be easily able to cope with that rise in demand. Don't forget, we still have a falling birth rate anyway, so the numbers will be going down, but they're likely to go up, as I say, when we do get people in there. But it'll be a significant amount of time before we see any increase in pupil numbers to do that. Doctors and dentists, I don't think there's anybody in here that won't tell us a tale of woe when they can't get a doctor's appointment. We've all been there. I mean, I was waiting 10 days for a doctor's appointment myself. So that's not something we have a direct influence over. The reality is that for a significant number of years, we have failed miserably as a nation to train enough doctors. And that's a terrible admission to have to make. But as a nation, we failed to train doctors. 7 years to train a doctor. We're not going to, even if the best will in the world of a government that's really committed to the NHS, we ain't going to solve this problem overnight. It's going to take a number of years. So, I say, we all have a problem with doctors. We all know we've got issues around that and can't get appointments and services being poor. So, thank you very much for your question.
Thank you. Question 10. Councillor Longstaff, do you have a supplementary?
Yes, please, Madam Mayor. And thanks for the reply from Councillor Turner. First, I'll openly say I'm a season ticket holder for the Giants. Mr Ken Davey has spoken about the old gasworks as his preferred location. He's gone public with that on all the social web avenues. In the Cabinet papers today, when I read all 368 pages, there's a lot of mention of heritage, about how we have a great heritage. We're in danger of losing our Super League team at the moment. For my North Kirklees colleagues, a few weeks ago the Giants moved to Dewsbury because there were a concert on at the main stadium. We were very close to winning the best team in the league, which is Wigan, unfortunately I have to say that. We were seconds away. Why? It's a small stadium, a great atmosphere. We were really close to winning a top team. So we badly need this new, smaller stadium. My question straightforward is, let's assist the Giants to find that home, not hinder them. Thank you.
Councillor Turner.
Thank you for the question. Of course, no one wants to see the Giants move out of Huddersfield. No one wants to see them not have a home. But they are a business owned by Ken Davey. It's his responsibility to find a site. And whilst it is his responsibility, we have been working very hard with Ken to try and find a site. I'm not going to go into details, but I could name you many sites that we've looked at with him to try and find a solution. All I can say at this moment in time is, and I'm not going to say any more, there is a board meeting next Friday where Ken will be attending of KSDL to discuss the future.
Thank you. Question 11. Councillor Bellamy, do you have a supplementary?
I do, Madam Mayor. Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Crook, for your response. And while I appreciate that exemptions on neutering requirements will be considered on a case-by-case basis, tenants are still understanding seeking greater clarity on what types of circumstances may qualify for such an exemption. I'll give you an example. I've got a resident that's got concerns. They have a pedigree male dog which is regularly used for stud purposes. In cases like this, where a pet may have a recognised role in breeding or its significant pedigree value, would the council be minded to view this as a reasonable ground for an exemption? Furthermore, will the council be issuing detailed guidance to tenants setting out what may be considered a valid exemption, with practical examples to ensure fairness and constituency and the decision-making process? Thank you.
Councillor Crook.
Thank you, Councillor Bellamy, for your supplementary question. I did just want to clarify something, because in the response we'd mentioned that all pets needed to be neutered. I did clarify that. It's just dogs and cats that would be applying that regulation to. And that's following legislation. So in 2016, legislation came in to say that dogs have to be microchipped, and in 2023, cats. So it made sense for our policy to follow that. In terms of breeding animals, there is a prohibition against breeding animals deliberately in our property, but I think that the example you've given of a male dog who's a pedigree dog and used for breeding in other locations would be a reasonable exemption. I don't think it would be appropriate for the service to spend time and resource trying to put together an exhaustive list of what the exemptions might be, and that's why there's an instruction saying that there would be, on written request, a decision made on exemption. I think that's the right way to go. Thanks.
Thank you. Just hang on a minute, Councillor Smith. We'll just switch your microphone on. Okay. Turn off, Councillor. Right.
Madam Mayor, could I please move for a suspension of the standing order so that all written questions can be heard?
Thank you. So it's been proposed by Councillor Smith and seconded by Councillor Firth that we suspend standing orders to hear the rest of the questions. So we will move to a vote on that. We will use the consoles, please. And I've just lost my place. Has everyone voted? I think that is carried. So we will suspend standing orders to hear the rest of the written questions. Thank you. We're on question 12 then. Councillor Bellamy, do you have a supplementary?
Thank you, Mayor. First of all, can I thank Councillor Hawkins for his very quick response to this. But while I appreciate the need for rules to prevent abuse of the service, I'd like to just revisit the issue of flexibility and enforcement on the ground. A resident recently borrowed a flatbed van from work to take a 3-seater sofa and 2 armchairs to the Meltham site. Clearly domestic waste. Despite this, he was refused entry because of the type of vehicle. Even when he offered to carry the items in by hand, he was told that was not allowed. It took a standoff at the gate before he was eventually permitted in. Given this, what reassurances can you offer that the frontline staff at the HWR6 are empowered and trained to apply common sense in situations like this, where residents are clearly trying to do the right thing? And how can we ensure that genuine cases aren't being turned away simply because a vehicle doesn't fit a technical category?
Thank you. Thank you. Councillor Hawkins.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Bellamy, for your supplementary as well. I think it's a bit reductive to describe it as a technicality, though. It is very important that our household waste and recycling centres are not being abused, particularly by commercial entities. They are, the first word is household, and they should very much be used by households. I will take that specific example away, though, because, like you say, common sense should prevail in such situations. Going back to my response to Councillor Safdar, I want to be encouraging people to use the legal routes and making it as convenient for them as possible. So I will take away that specific case. Thank you.
Thank you. Question 13, Councillor Bellamy, supplementary.
Thank you again, Councillor Hawkins, for your response regarding the prioritisation of the Gin Lane scheme over Station Road. While I appreciate that the data-led approach and cost considerations, residents in Hornley remain concerned about the safety of the Station Road junction, especially given the traffic volume and the speed, and with there being the school higher up. Can you confirm whether Station Road will be considered in future road safety reviews or funding rounds, and what criteria would need to be met for it to be prioritised?
Councillor Hawkins.
Thank you again, Councillor Bellamy. So similar to my response, it's very much a data-driven process here. This is going to be a bit of a golden thread, I think, throughout the rest of my answers to Councillor Armour and Councillor Hall as well. There is sort of a set DFT process that we must follow and adhere to, and that those considerations are taken into account, particularly around sort of records of data of speeding, data relating to accidents. Data basically is what drives that process. So it is one of the many areas that we know are particular hotspots that we are monitoring, particularly around schools, as you mentioned. I'm familiar with the junction as well and do know how tricky it is, very much so on a good day. So it's certainly not one that we rule out, but it is data driven, and if the data's there, that will bring the action.
Thank you. Question for...
Record's not coming up, I'm not on the list. I've just watched back on the live because that was moving too fast. Could we just check, please?
The vote's still being recorded.
My vote's recorded, it's just my name's not coming.
It's just a plug on the screen, it's not showing on right.
Right, okay, thank you for that, sorry.
Question 14 then. Councillor Sheard, supplementary?
Yes, Madam Mayor. And thank you to Councillor Pattison for clarifying the communication trail. But I really do just want to stress, though, that leadership can't be outsourced to mayoral officers or MPs. Neither Tracy Brabin nor Kim Leadbeater lead Kirklees Council. You do. The public expects the council under your leadership to make ownership of issues that directly impact our residents. Just to clarify, in the email chain that I got, Kim's office said that she's made her views clear. That's it. The Mayor's office said that the site lies outside the Mayor's remit, and I actually spoke to a council officer on the issue as well, who confirmed that a West Yorkshire Combined Authority-led solution has the best chance of success. What's missing is the active political will to break the deadlock and actually lead a solution. So, I will ask again. Will you, as leader of Kirklees Council, now take responsibility for convening formal, structured cross-border talks with Leeds City Council and the West Yorkshire Combined Authority to explore a joint funding or operational model to reopen Nab Lane Tip? I mean, I've said quite a few times, I am more than happy to support as well in facilitating these talks. But the longer that we delay, the more environmental harm comes, the more fly tipping, the more service inequality we allow to grow. Regional problems require regional thinking, but it has to start somewhere. Well, let's start with you.
Councillor Pattison.
Thank you, Councillor Shear, for your question. When anybody, this happens lots of times, copies or sends an email to lots of different people, there is a hierarchy in which you expect it to be answered. And in this case, Mayor Brabin is at the top, MPs, and then ourselves as a council. You've certainly had a response to the opening of Nab Lane from the Kirklees many a time, and including there was a scrutiny committee on it. As I did say in my answer to your question, the chances of a regional agreement, certainly to opening Nab Lane, I think are absolutely zilch, to be honest. And there's many reasons for that. One of them being all 5 authorities, not that anyone from Leeds is likely to come across to Nab Lane perhaps, but all regional authorities, the regional authorities have different contractors running their services, different contractual arrangements, different arrangements for waste recycling, different arrangements at their tips. And in particular, and the most important point that I would like to make actually, I think, is that with simpler recycling coming on board, which we do hope will, well, not do hope, I mean, it will be in place by, not in Kirklees, but certainly in other authorities by May 26th, and it will be in ours shortly after that. The use of waste disposal sites should go down, because simpler recycling will mean that certainly in Kirklees there'll be more waste actually removed at the curbside. There are other things coming on board which will mean less waste will be actually created in the first place. So the need for household waste recycling tips will actually go down. So the smaller tips like Nab Lane if that was still open at that point, it would be probably more than likely to be closed because it is small and there is no need for it. So I'm sorry that I can't help to promote your election campaign, is it? But you've had your answer several times. Thank you.
Councillor Sheard. Question 15. Councillor Darwin, do you have a supplementary?
Yes, I do, Madam Mayor. Yeah, I will stand. My initial question was in relation to Dewsbury regarding the government's pledge for 900 million investments into major sporting events and grassroots facilities across the UK. Given the importance of promoting health, well-being and community cohesion in our area, I believe this presents a valuable opportunity for Dewsbury. Our communities would greatly benefit from improved or newly developed sports facilities, especially those that are accessible, inclusive and reflective of our residents' needs. Given the ongoing closure of Dewsbury Sports Centre, including the loss of a local swimming pool, concerns remain that young people in Dewsbury are being left behind in terms of access to quality sport and extracurricular facilities in their local area. Dewsbury is one of England's most deprived towns. Residents feel increasingly neglected in terms of investment and opportunities. What steps will be taken to replace or reopen key facilities like the Dewsbury Sports Centre, which is important to providing inclusive, accessible opportunities for sport and well-being? And what assurances can you give to the residents of Dewsbury, especially young people and families, that sport and community well-being are being treated as priorities for Dewsbury under your leadership, especially since the constituents don't even have access to a local swimming pool for life-saving skills and training? Thank you.
Before I move on, Councillor Patterson, could I ask that members please respect other members while they're speaking? Because if I can hear you here, then other members are going to be able to hear you as well, okay? And I've had a long day. Patience is not what it should be. Okay, all right. Councillor Patterson, thank you.
Thank you for your question, Councillor Hanif. Just to... Hanif Darwin. Sorry, on your last point, and just to pick up on that about learning life-saving skills for all children in Dewsbury, that they do learn life-saving skills in Dewsbury. All children in Dewsbury, as in the rest of Kirklees, do have the opportunity to learn to swim via their schools, so that's never been taken away from them. But until we know the criteria for the grassroots sport facilities fund, and that's published, we do not know if leisure centres will meet the criteria that that fund will insist on. We also need to await the results of the strategic needs assessment, which is currently taking place, to decide where our investment will reap most benefit in Dewsbury and surrounding areas, and best break down the barriers which limit people's ability to be physically active. The assessment will provide us with intelligence about what the barriers are, which prevent many of our citizens from meeting the Chief Medical Officer guidelines in relation to levels of physical activity. We do understand and know the problems that there are, certainly in Dewsbury and other areas in Kirklees, where our health expectation, our healthy lifestyles, etc., are not as great as they could be, and we would need to find out exactly what it is that will support everyone to have a healthy lifestyle in the future, and then we can spend our funds accordingly. Thank you.
Thank you. Question 16, Councillor David Hall.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you for your response to Cabinet Member. Unfortunately, it don't work. At the moment, we have this hokey-cokey system of trying to report things to the council, which goes something like residents, councillors, officers, councillors, residents, councillors, officers, councillors, residents, officers, black hole. And then we don't hear anything more about it. I wonder whether the Cabinet Member could look at a way of rationalising this particular problem of trying to get some cameras for tipping, because this has been reported almost weekly by residents. It has been an issue which I know Councillor Holmes has dealt with in the past. I've recently raised it, and we don't seem to be able to get any action on a particular site for fly tipping.
Councillor Amanda Pinnock.
Thank you for the question, Councillor Hall. But it's me. It's me. Okay. Thank you for the question. And you raised some interesting points there. I think it's important to point out that CCTV is not the silver bullet. I'm sure we all realise that in the council chamber. CCTV alone is not going to deal with fly tipping. It may act as a deterrent in some circumstances, but it's not the best solution because the data is only valuable when we're able to identify who the perpetrators are. What we need, where we are relying on CCTV, is that we get to see things like vehicle registration plates and looking through that waste if there's an opportunity that might lead to the name, the address and the business premises of perpetrators. So although you've raised a question about CCTV and we've responded to that, what I want to make clear is it can't just be, it doesn't deal with the problem in isolation. What we need to be doing is looking at things like education, informing residents about how they can safely and effectively dispose of waste. And I know my colleague has addressed that, and he'll probably talk a lot more about it when responding to other questions. But also, you know, making sure that we invest in dealing with prosecutions, that those people who break the law are punished, which sends out a clear message to other people that it's not acceptable. And also in terms of our communications, we've got to make sure we get it right and we use the right platforms to get the message across. And in addition to that, we use counsellors. Counsellors have got a role in this to ensure that we can make sure that this happens and that it's effective. I accept what you say. There's a lot more coming. I'll talk a little bit more about it, I think, if I get the opportunity to, in relation to what the strategy is that we're looking at. But at the moment, we are working with Keep Britain Tidy, and there's a lot of work that's happening behind the scenes, which in due course will come to fruition and disclose a lot more about the outcome of that pilot that we're doing. So I hope that answers your question.
Okay, thank you. Question 17, Councillor Hall, you have a supplementary?
Yes, please, Madam Mayor. Who is it this time? It's Councillor Hawkins, I do apologise. Right, it don't work. We're doing the officer resident councillor okey-cokey again, I'm afraid, on speed limits. I've raised this issue for years and years ago. This is pre-COVID when this was raised. And then we were told we've got to wait for this borough-wide review of speed limits, which was done in 2021. And then it says, you've got to provide more data on this and data on that. Residents can't provide data. I can't provide data. I can't go out and put strips down. I mean, we're just completely reliant on the officers actually going out and doing something. And it isn't being done. And I was wondering whether you could look into a way in which this could be better achieved as well. Thank you.
Councillor Hawkins.
Thank you, Councillor Hall. And just for your benefit on the previous question, if waste is disposed of legally, it comes to me, and if it's illegally, Councillor Pinnock's the one who's on the case. Insert your dynamic duo analogy there as you see fit. In terms of the question around the speed limits, I mean, I'd be very interested if there's a specific case in your ward that you're referring to, as is done on a case-by-case basis. I think you perfectly encapsulated what our role as councillors as well in this. We cannot do a great deal without the help and support of our officers in this council, and we should be very grateful for all they do as well. And through that as well, identifying, when hotspots have been identified, the council have been able to go out there and do the monitoring and we as local councillors, we've had speed indicator devices which we've been able to put in hotspots as well. There is a variety of different tools. It's not entirely on the residents by any stretch. It is road safety, as it is for everyone, is a partnership working that we all do, particularly around Vision Zero. It's the council, it's the police, it's the communities, it's everyone all working together to make sure that we do make our roads as safe as possible. But if there's a particular example in your area that you'd want us to look into, as I say, I'll take that away, we'll go look at the data, and if there is a case there, we'll certainly progress it.
Okay, question 18, Councillor Hall.
It don't work, Madam Mayor. I'm going to start dancing in a minute, this. We, according to your figures, we've reported in 221 instances of where we want vegetation to come back, and we've dealt with 94. Now, it's not going to be long before that's going to mount up at that rate. We know we're not even dealing with half of them. So over a year, this is going to mount up and mount up. Same with the PROW cutbacks. Now, I'm looking forward to maybe some of the money that we got through in the budget amendment being used to clean up the borough to tackle some of this. But it is a one-off, isn't it? And we need some commitment from the administration to look at how we can re-engineer this particular facet of council activity so we can get stuff done. Just an addendum, Madam Mayor, if you don't mind. The common denominator to my three questions is the fact that response to councillors is pretty poor at the moment across the board. And secondly, would he commit to some way of re-engineering this relationship between the residents and the council so that we've got a better, easier, quicker, more responsive solution to what people would like, rather than us having to do the hokey-cokey? Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Hawkins.
It's quite a hat-trick for you there, Councillor Hall. I'll answer as best I can anyway, the broad point at the end around communication, because I know a lot of work has gone into customer satisfaction and customer expectations that we as a council sort of deal with, how we can make sure that the information support gets to residents much quicker than it is doing. I hope, certainly in recent months, sort of in my area, I've seen improved communication, particularly when it comes to waste and highways, because that is so important that that information gets to local councils and then gets out to residents as well, so they know the state of play and understand it. The communication absolutely is key to all of this. But so is the context as well to the actual original supplementary there. There are 4 seasons in a year, you might know this, Council Hall, and right now we're sort of in a bit of a growing season, so we're seeing quite a few overgrowths, and then when we get more towards the winter time, we'll see less reports in that sort of time. That's a cycle that goes on year after year, really, and we try to address those as a GAT team as best they can, but as you said, there's last year's budget amendment, or earlier this year's budget amendment, should I say, included extra resource with improved financial settlements as well from central government. Any additional resource we can put in to improve how we respond to clearing back vegetation or triffids, as Councillor Armour describes them, then we'll certainly pursue that.
Thank you. Question 19, Councillor Armour.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I'm labouring under a little bit of handicap today because, due to a misunderstanding on my part, I don't have the original questions and answers in front of me. But I'm sure Councillor Hawkins and I can make it up as we go along, sir. And I thank the Cabinet member for his response, although it's not quite as comprehensive nor clear as it could have been. I am told that around 100 zebra crossings are inspected twice a year, but I'm not told how many such crossings there are in total. Does this mean all crossings are reviewed every 6 months? Half of them? Some other proportion? I don't know. But of much greater importance than previous inspections, whether we're speaking of crossings or other safety markings, is the time taken to repair defects once they are identified. We are all aware of defective road markings within our wards or further afield in the borough, which seem to be left for quite some time before being repaired. Will the councillor please inform me as to the average and the maximum lengths of time from either report or discovery of defects to their repair. Thank you.
Councillor Hawkins.
Thank you, Councillor. I appreciate your accommodation for us making it up on the spot, but I won't on that final query in particular. I will go away and provide more concrete detail there as to how long the average time is for repairing the road markings. It somewhat links back to Councillor Hall's question around the addressing vegetation in a timely manner as well. I think we've got to, the limited resource, and Kirklees is a very good place, and we've got to prioritise those resources as best we can. So certainly when we get reports around road markings that have diminished over time, they're certainly responded to when we receive those. So it's done on sort of a severity basis there, shall we say, and how critical they are. Again, it's similar to all the questions I'm going to come back to around road safety and addressing the highway. It's data. If we know there's sort of a safety concern, particularly with road markings, then we'll make sure we replenish those as timely as possible. But how timely that is, I will go away and get the detail for you, Councillor Armour.
Yes, thank you, Councillor.
Right, Councillor Armour. Question 20.
Sorry, Madam Mayor, I got in front of myself. Question 20. Once again, it's a fair response, for which I thank the Cabinet member. And I particularly appreciate the assurance that road safety is a key concern, even when set against financial pressures. Although I do note that this is not always apparent on the ground. I would like to draw the Council's attention, since it was asked for examples, to two sites in particular, although there are many others of a similar nature. These two are in my ward. The first of these is in Grangemoor, and it's that part of Wakefield Road between Grangemoor Roundabout, top of Liley Lane, and the junction of Ben Booth Lane, where a number of signs are obscured, but also of equal importance, visibility of oncoming traffic at the top of Ben Booth Lane is severely restricted by vegetation. At this point, Wakefield Road has a 50 mph speed limit. Moving across my ward and approaching Farnley Tyres, the junction of St Helens Gate with Woodsome Road features a small triangular area with one or two road signs on it, where vegetation regularly obscures the signs, and again, visibility of the major road is impaired. At this point, Woodsome Road has a 60 mph speed limit. Both these major roads, I suggest, are higher speed and ought to be prioritised for proactive treatment. Does the Cabinet member agree?
Councillor Hawkins.
Indeed I do, Councillor Armour, and like the Triffids, we must defeat them, we certainly do. But as with, again, this is a common thread between the previous two answers again, what more resource means we can do more, and that's certainly something we want to be doing. If we have more resource, we are able to address them much quicker. But I will, certainly the two areas you've highlighted, I'll go out and look at them with my own two eyes as well, and I'm happy to work with, as Councillor Taylor will be able to attest to as well. I'll go like that, I think. As Councillor Taylor will attest to, I'm more than happy going out on site as well and looking at these issues with yourselves. Anything we can do to make sure we expedite resolving them as quickly as possible so that our highways remain safe for our road users is our top priority.
Thank you. Question 21. Councillor Armour.
I waited for you, Madam Mayor. Thank you. I'm afraid that I do find this answer lacking, although I appreciate the Cabinet member has most likely been advised by officers here. Yes, road safety is a responsibility of all road users, but the Council must address reality, not theory. Some road users are less responsible than others. I think we all know that. It may be the case that highways, in building their evidence-based criteria, lay claim to considering a whole host of factors. In my experience over the last 11 years, the practice has been always for officers to simply cite one single factor. recorded injury and fatality figures. Recorded here means those collisions which police have determined result in serious personal injury or death. It appears that the starting point for serious injury is broken bones. Written off cars, demolished walls, damaged street furniture just do not register, no matter how spectacular the collision. In practice, highways policy is to firmly eschew proactivity and to rely entirely on a reactive approach, which leaves many of my residents in fear. In particular, I think of the junction of Farbank with Huddersfield Road in Shelley and the junction of Thurston Road with Butts Road in Farney Tyres. Will the Cabinet member please take all necessary steps to ensure that highways officers consider all of the stated factors enumerated in the initial answer, not just personal injury and death statistics, when reviewing their evidence?
Councillor Hawkins.
Thank you, Councillor. Yes, I will. I think it's important, again, apologies, it's a bit of a repetition there from me here. As I said to, I think, Councillor Bellamy earlier on, that we do have to follow, and all local authorities have to follow the DFT guidance as it's outlined, which is a whole host of criteria that must be considered alongside partners like, as I say, the police as well. It's, one accident is one too many. Certainly as we move towards Vision Zero, we want to aim to have, as the title might give away, 0 accidents on our roads, and we do need to explore and use every tool in our arsenal to be able to tackle that issue. But I share the frustrations as well with yourself and residents as well at how slow and how difficult that process can be, a particular requirement for it to be so data-driven. I understand that means it's certainly not responsive sometimes, but with everything that we are able to do as a local authority, we are doing. And as I say, I'm more than happy to give you that reassurance that we will explore every avenue possible. Thank you.
Thank you. Question 22, Councillor Burke, supplementary.
Yes, thank you. And thank you, Councillor Turner, for the response to my initial question. I fully recognise the Council's ambition to promote high-quality employment uses within the Gasworks Street site, particularly as part of the station to stadium corridor and in connection with the impressive progress being made on the National Health Innovation Campus. I fully support efforts to grow innovation and attract investment to Huddersfield. However, in light of the public interest and the proposal from the Huddersfield Giants owner to develop a new purpose-built rugby stadium at the Gasworks site, I believe we are now facing a very real and time-sensitive opportunity, one that deserves full and open-minded consideration, not a flat dismissal based on assumptions or decisions made in 2022. So I ask, will the Cabinet now commit to proactively exploring with all relevant stakeholders whether a mixed-use development incorporating a new Huddersfield Giants stadium alongside health, well-being and innovation facilities could be a viable use of the Gasworks Street site? And will the Council take a leadership role in enabling that dialogue rather than closing the door before the potential has been fully tested? This proposal is serious, deliverable and clearly backed by those involved. It is not in competition with health and innovation, it can complement it. A stadium focused on professional sport, community use and well-being can sit side by side with research and enterprise. This is about synergy, not exclusion. Relocating the Giants would also give Huddersfield Town the ability to move forward with its own plans for the stadium. It would also provide the Council with the opportunity to remove itself from long-term risk and financial liability associated with the stadium, which is a significant governance concern. So this is not just a vision anymore, it's a genuine strategic opportunity, one that would benefit the Giants, the football club, the university and the wider Huddersfield community. The Council has a chance to bring people together, explore co-location, consider innovative land use and deliver a development that promotes health, sport, investment and civic pride. So let's move forward from fixed plans to flexible thinking and make space for a solution that works for everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Burke. I earlier on said that there is a board meeting next Friday where all these options will be discussed. So prior to that, I cannot comment any further.
Thank you. Question 23, Councillor A. Smith, have you got a supplementary?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And thank you, Councillor Hawkins, for your initial response. However, many residents remain deeply frustrated, not only by the repeated miscollections, but also by poor communication around them. In numerous cases, notifications about changes or disruptions have been sent too late to be of any use, in some instances arriving the day before or even after the scheduled collection date. To make matters worse, the email reminder system is currently out of action, with no clear time frame for its restoration. There is an ongoing lack of timely and reliable communication that is significantly undermining public confidence and reinforcing the perception that the Council is not listening to or prioritising residents' concerns. From a councillor's perspective, the lack of timely and meaningful support and engagement from the Council support email only compounds the frustration, not just in waste, but across many areas of council activity. Can the Cabinet Member please clarify what urgent steps are being taken to improve communication with residents, particularly around restoring and improving the email notification system? Furthermore, and in light of our continued disruptions caused by staff shortages, will the Council commit to allowing residents to present side waste at their next scheduled collection whenever rounds are stood down, so that they are not penalised for service failures beyond their control? Could the Cabinet Member also explain how all of this ties in with the Council leader's stated mission in the Council plan that this year the Council will focus on getting the basics right for our residents and our customers? Thank you.
I take it that was an A, B, C and D option for the supplementary question. Yeah. Okay. Councillor Hawkins.
I'll do my level best. So I want to, if I may, provide the context of the issues we're seeing at the moment before I answer the more sort of broad, specific questions you've made there, because I think context really is key in sort of the situation we're at there. Because as you've referred to, there's sort of the issues we've seen over recent weeks have been down to the shortage of drivers. That is very much a national issue that has been happening. This particularly hit a height about 3 years ago post-pandemic. There was about 100,000 driver shortages across all sectors, logistics in particular. I work in that for my proper job, as my family calls it, so very familiar with that, but also in our waste services too. Now, thanks to industry-wide sort of recruitment and training efforts, including here in Kirklees, that shortage is down to an estimated 40,000 this year. In Kirklees, we've largely, until recently, succeeded in sort of shielding the service from the worst of these pressures, from a more tiered approach, using a reserve pool of drivers to cover any sickness or absence there. Group load has been trained with HGV licences as well as the need to use agency drivers from time to time. We actively support our staff in sort of pursuing those avenues as well, particularly around getting HGV licences and cover the full costs of trading, so that so we can build some long-term resilience and succession planning there. But all three of those tiers have been operational these past few weeks. Unfortunately, the agencies that we have relied on in the past haven't been able to provide those drivers. It's a hyper-competitive market given the shortage, which means particularly the private sector is able to pay substantially more for agency staff than the public sector, which basically shuts out local councils. It's no consolation to residents here at all, I know, but we're not the only ones in this boat by any stretch. In answer to your final question around will residents be allowed to sort of put additional waste at the side of their green bins, yes they will, and that will be collected. There'll be no penalising there. We understand and sort of recognise the disruption that has been caused over these past few weeks and yeah, the additional waste that goes with it. So yes, that will be corrected. In terms of how we can sort of improve communication, it's very difficult, and I hope you've sort of seen this in sort of recent weeks and months as well. We can let councillors and improvement to elected members has, I feel, improved when around has needed to be stood down. But if it's an on-the-day issue that occurs in the morning, particularly around sickness of drivers, for instance, it's very hard to get that information any sooner to councillors than what we've been able to do. And then as councillors, you can, well, as we all do, distribute that out to our local residents, inform them and let them know what's going. But that's only the start of the improvements I hope to see in communications. And because, quite right, as you say, the ambition of, I say this administration, but I think the ambitions of all of us is to make sure we're getting the basics right. In the face of such national pressures, whether it's within our control or not, we have fallen short in this case here, very much so. But As of right now, the team is at capacity. There is one additional team going around as well to help with the recovery efforts, and we sincerely hope, touch all the wood you can find, that by next week we'll be back to regular service. So thank you for your question.
Thank you. Question 24. Councillor Burke, you have a supplementary?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Pinnock, for the response to my question. I'm happy to acknowledge the wider behavioural and societal context of fly tipping, as you pointed out in your initial response. I don't dispute there are deeper issues involved as well. But with respect, what our communities are asking for is not just analysis, they're asking for action from this administration. So this is not just obviously a problem in Lindley, as we've heard already this evening, and I recognise that. Fly tipping is happening all over Kirklees, and some areas are dealing with it on an even greater scale than we are in Lindley. But that's exactly why we need to have a clear strategy, because this is a borough-wide issue that continues to damage our shared environment and erode pride in our communities. In Lindley, we have repeat hotspots that have been reported again and again over several years. They are cleared only for the problem to return within days. That approach isn't working. It's just containing the problem on a temporary basis. Fly tipping has a real impact. It affects the quality of life, health, safety, and the image of our local areas. Residents are rightly fed up, and so are we as councillors. We all want to live in cleaner, greener, safer communities, and this is fundamentally about getting the basics right. We need to go beyond reactive clear-ups. That means targeted action at persistent sites, using mobile CCTV, stronger enforcement, better signage, direct engagement with property owners and any other tools available. And I know you've mentioned previously about CCTV not being the answer, but it's an option and it's absolutely better than doing nothing. So I ask, what specific practical measures are being introduced to tackle repeat fly tipping sites, both in Lindley and across Kirklees? And when will communities begin to see meaningful change on the ground? This can't be left to words in theory. Residents need to see results. If this council is serious about respecting communities, then it must start by delivering the basics visibly and consistently across the borough.
Councillor Amanda Pinnock.
Councillor Burke. So, you've raised a number of things there which I've outlined already in this council chamber. It's not, as you say, it's not a Lindley issue, it's not a Kirklees issue, it's a national issue. And it's something, you're right, we do need to get to grips with. Really important. So what the council's doing at the moment is we're working with Keep Britain Tidy to help reduce waste and increase recycling. Keep Britain Tidy, they're an independent charitable organisation who have a proven record of successfully getting people to take action for the betterment of the environment. They're an expert in tackling litter and fly tipping. They have a proven history of engaging with the general public and have a proven record of enhancing parks, beaches and public spaces. So what's happening at the moment is there's an ongoing pilot which will end in 2026, and the idea is from that engagement and that learning we will create our strategy and roll that out. The focus with Keep Britain Tidy is around behavioural change, it's around education and community engagement. And in addition to that, and to improve our chances of tackling persistent fly tipping, what the council need to do, as you've pointed out, is have the correct surveillance as a deterrent, but also utilise the powers that we have. And the powers that we have are quite extensive. So we have fixed notice penalties. So we don't just have prosecutions, we have fixed notice penalties. We have prosecutions to deal with persistent and serious fly tipping. In the magistrates' court, we can potentially fine up to £50,000 in the magistrates, unlimited in the Crown Court, as well as imprisonment for up to 12 months and 5 years in the Crown Court. We can seize vehicles that are used in fly tipping and we can crush those vehicles. So there are a number of measures available to the council, and what we need to do, as I've said earlier on, is integrate all those measures and all those approaches to try and tackle the issue of fly tipping. And as I've indicated in the written response as well, we will be recruiting more enforcement officers. That's crucial to ensuring the success of the strategy going forward. But the council at the moment is undertaking a CCTV audit, which is really important, looking at the compatibility of the devices that we have, upgrading the systems that we have, making sure that they're fit for purpose. So it's those sorts of things brought together that I think is going to create that meaningful change that we all want to see. Thank you.
Question 25, Councillor Burke, supplementary.
Yes, please, thank you. And thank you, Councillor Dadd, for your response to my question. I need to be clear, no one is questioning the dedication or hard work of the Council Inquiries team. They do a vital job and deserve credit for the increasing volume of casework they handle. But the point I'm raising is not about replacing that system, it's about strengthening it. We need to support the team, not leave them as the only mechanism for raising and resolving local issues. Councillors need more than an email system to do our jobs effectively. We need meaningful engagement with officers, timely access to information and the ability to follow things through, not simply log, wait and chase. This is also about accountability. Residents expect local issues to be addressed with urgency and clarity. It is much harder to deliver through emails alone, with no opportunity to speak directly with officers, ask questions or collectively find solutions to the problems. That's why I'm calling for the reintroduction of structured ward-based meetings every 4 to 6 weeks or where needed. These meetings don't need to be bureaucratic, they don't need to be in person, they can be online, time limited and focus on key themes like housing, waste, planning, highways, so issues that residents raise with us constantly. All options should be explored. In some wards, they may not feel that they need such an approach, and that's entirely fine, but we shouldn't adopt a one-size-fits-all approach that limits and prevents other wards like ours in Lindley from getting the direct engagement we need to serve our residents properly. So I'll ask, will Cabinet commit to working with ward members who want these meetings so they can take forward a practical, flexible and a collaborative approach that helps us do our jobs better and relieves pressure on overstretched services. So this is not about creating more work, it's about doing the work more effectively. Councillors need to be enabled, not just managed through inboxes. If we're serious about openness, place-based working and local leadership, we must put structures in place that reflect that. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Burke, for your question and your supplementary, and thank you for recognising the hard work and dedication that a very small councillor inquiries team are currently doing. It's a very small team of only 2 members who are receiving hundreds of inquiries from 69 councillors on a weekly basis. So I want to personally take this opportunity to thank them for the work that they're doing, and I take your point that it's no criticism on the officers or the work that they are currently doing. I hear you in terms of taking a different approach. We have, looked at the suggestion that you made around, the wardly meetings every 6 weeks, and the rough costs of setting up ward meetings based on meetings every 6 weeks with 1 senior officer, 4 technical officers and administrative support just for the meetings alone would be around 4,000 additional hours lost to services, around 150,000 lost productive time, and we anticipate that the preparation, the administration and follow-up time and costs would be roughly double that. That doesn't mean that we don't recognise that there needs to be additional work that we need to do in certain wards when it comes to dealing with issues around maybe highways or planning, but we can look at different ways of engaging with councillors and officers in making sure that the queries are dealt with. But at the moment, if we were to roll out what you've suggested, it would be very time consuming and very costly, but that doesn't mean that we don't look at better communication methods. We've already recognised that in the chamber today. We do lack when it comes to communication, and I think that's something that we should look at as a whole. Thank you.
Thank you. Question 26. I don't believe Councillor Robinson has a supplementary. I'm sure if she submits her supplementary to the Cabinet member, Councillor Crook, I'm sure you take that for an answer. Okay, thank you. So we'll move on to question 27. Can I just remind members that it is just turned 10 to 9 and we have 7 questions remaining, if it helps with conciseness. Councillor McLaughlin.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm grateful to the leader for the answer to my initial question, outlining the huge potential costs of a public referendum of potentially over £300,000. Beyond the cost of the exercise, however, do you think the benefits of a committee system might outweigh this cost?
Councillor Patterson.
Thank you very much, Councillor McLaughlin. No, I don't, basically, is the short answer. But as has been shown in other councils, such as Cheshire East, where they have had a cabinet system for a while, there was a peer review undertaken there from the a team from the LGA, and they reported that the committee system has led to excessive silo working, departments and committees operating in isolation, resulting in fragmented decision-making and poor cross-cutting governance. This structural problem created inefficiencies, confusion and weakened accountability. And I think that is what would happen in any council where a committee system is brought in. A committee system does not mean per se that all councillors are any more involved in decision making than they can be under a cabinet system. It is no more transparent and residents are no better represented. It does not mean better and speedier decisions, which enables the councils to work at a better pace. There is more trust and confidence from partners who often do not understand our arcane ways of working, particularly under a committee system, and it is important and it is more transparent and accountable. Decisions under any system are also taken by officers under delegated powers and the full council, of course. The budget and the council plan are approved at this very meeting. Those are the most important decisions that all of our councillors take. There's lots of other opportunities for councillors and our residents to get involved in running this council. So, no, I do not think the benefits outweigh the cost.
Thank you. Question 28. Councillor Taylor, supplementary.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Pinnock, for your response. It achieved what I really wanted to achieve. I had some fly tipping that had been outstanding since the 1st of May, and amazingly, it was collected yesterday. Funny that, isn't it? So I just say to members, written questions can help. But I think perhaps more importantly, you talk about non-urgent waste might take up to 12 weeks. And I think that probably will have shocked all members when they read that comment. My worry about non-urgent waste, I don't know how you define non-urgent, but my worry about it is, in my patch, in rural areas, in quiet lanes, when they see where fly tipping has been dumped, if it's left there for a while, it's like an advert to say, this is a place to stop and dump your fly tipping. So if you leave it there for 12 weeks, that's like an advert for fly tipping. So I do think, and I think across the questions this evening, I think we're getting a theme here around fly tipping. I don't know why I'm looking at you as well, Tyler, but probably is something that as an administration you probably want to reflect on about whether what you're doing currently with collecting fly tipping really is fit for purpose. Thank you.
Councillor Pinnock.
Can I just say noted?
Question 29 then. Councillor Scott, supplementary.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think what I'll do is I'll actually submit it in writing and circulate it personally around the members when I get my response.
Thank you. Question 30. Councillor Moore, supplementary.
Yes. Is it all right? Yes. Thank you, Madam Mayor. It would appear Councillor Patterson is wearing her rose-tinted political glasses today with part of her response. Reform took control of Durham Council, coming from nowhere, to take 65 seats, with Labour down to just 4 seats, down a staggering 38, having controlled Durham for over 100 years. Somebody involved in politics for over 30 years, I'd call that a political spanking. My question is, Labour has performed a monumental U-turn on fuel allowance after originally blocking 7.5 million pensioners from receiving it. Pensioners that Councillor Pattison suggested were using the money to buy Christmas presents. Does she now admit they deserve this support? And what exactly forced her to change her mind, or is she still opposed to it? Thank you.
Councillor Pattison.
Very briefly, Durham was not controlled by Labour before those local elections. I do, as I said in my previous response, the words I used at that time were appropriate to the question and the speech that I was making. This is government policy. I am not here to speak on government policy. Thank you.
Question 31, Councillor Moore, supplementary.
Yes. At this month's Cabinet meeting, after I challenged Councillor Turner on the disproportionate level investment, almost 30 million for Huddersfield compared to Dewsbury, and highlighted some of the serious challenges our town faces, I was then accused of talking the town down, something he has reiterated tonight. Let me be clear, I wasn't talking the town down, I was pointing out the reality. Dewsbury has virtually a non-existent retail offer, rising violent crime and antisocial behaviour. We've seen the closure of Dewsbury Sports Centre, the downgrading of our library and falling footfall as many people now avoid the town centre. Does Councillor Turner not see that rather than me talking the town down, it's actually this Labour administration that's doing the town down?
Councillor Turner.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Councillor Moore accused the current leader of wearing rose-tinted glasses. I don't know what the opposite of that is, because clearly Councillor Moore wears them. The leader of his small group at the moment used to be the deputy leader of the council, used to be the leader of the council. As deputy leader, I attended an event in Dewsbury Town Hall where she bounced on stage to a fanfare.
Councillor Turner.
Right, so the then deputy leader of the council launched the Dewsbury Blueprint. Now, suddenly, the Dewsbury Blueprint is not fit for purpose. That's rather strange. Anyway, we did this last week, talking about violent crime in town centres and saying Dewsbury's rife with crime. And I said, it's not. There's a perception of crime. Absolutely, there's a perception of crime everywhere. Now, I thought this might come up this evening. So, as is my want, I did a bit of research. So I checked every local authority and checked the postcode around the town hall for consistency. In April, there were 606 recorded crimes in Halifax. In Huddersfield, 575. Wakefield, 646. Barnsley, 538. And Dewsbury, 311. Hardly a hotspot of crime.
Thank you, Councillor Turner. I'm sorry, Councillor Zaman, we're not going to have time to get to your two questions. Okay, that's 9 o'clock, everybody. The meeting is closed. Thank you.